You ungrateful, scheming little thief! Those words exploded from my mouth at 2:30 in the morning as I watched my daughter-in-law Diana hurl that suitcase into Crystal Lake. My hands shook against the cold window glass. 10 years. 10 years I'd welcomed this woman into my family, into my late husband's home, into my heart. And there she stood in the darkness, destroying evidence like some common criminal. The splash echoed across the water, and with it every ounce of trust I'd ever placed in her shattered. Before I tell you what I found in that lake, what really happened that night, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button right now, because this story gets darker than that water Diana threw her secrets into. And drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far my story travels. How many of you out there understand what it feels like when family betrays you? Stay with me until the end. You won't believe where this goes. I hadn't slept properly in 3 years. Not since Harold died. People tell you grief gets easier that time heals all wounds. They're liars. Every night I'd lie in our bed, the left side still perfectly made because I couldn't bring myself to disturb his pillow, and I'd stare at the ceiling, counting the hours until dawn made it acceptable to get up and pretend I was okay. That Tuesday night was worse than usual. The anniversary of Harold's death was creeping closer, just 5 days away, and the house felt suffocating. At 2 in the morning, I gave up on sleep entirely and went to the kitchen to make chamomile tea. Harold always said chamomile was useless, that nothing but a good whiskey could cure what ails you. But I'd promised him on his deathbed I'd take care of myself. The tea was a lie I told myself counted. The kitchen window faces Crystal Lake. Harold bought this house 40 years ago specifically for that view. He'd stand at this exact spot every morning with his coffee and say the same thing. Margaret, we're the luckiest people alive. I was standing in his spot in his ratty old cardigan I still wore because it smelled like him when I saw the car, headlights off, rolling slowly down the access road to the lake at 2 in the morning. My first thought was teenagers. We'd had problems with kids drinking and fooling around down by the water. I'd called the police twice last summer, but as the car got closer to the shore, close enough that the moonlight hit it, I recognized it. Diana's silver Honda, my daughter-in-law's car. What on earth? I whispered. The driver's door opened. Diana stepped out. Even from a distance, even in the dark, I knew her shape. Tall, too thin in my opinion, always wearing those expensive workout clothes like she was about to run a marathon. At 2 in the morning, she wore all black. Black pants, black jacket, black gloves. People don't wear gloves in June unless they don't want to leave fingerprints. My heart started hammering. Diana looked around, turning her head left and right like a burglar checking for witnesses. The way she moved all jerky and nervous made my stomach clench. This wasn't someone out for a peaceful nighttime walk. She opened the trunk. Even from my window, I could see her struggle with something heavy. She bent down, grabbed, pulled. A suitcase. Large, dark-colored, the kind you take on long international trips. Diana had to use both hands to drag it from the trunk. It hit the ground with a thud I couldn't hear, but could imagine. Diana, I said to the empty kitchen, what are you doing? She dragged that suitcase toward the water. Not walked. Dragged. Like whatever was inside weighed more than luggage should. The wheels left tracks in the dirt. She kept looking around, kept checking over her shoulder. Guilty. That's how guilty people move. When she reached the shore, she didn't hesitate. Diana lifted that suitcase. I don't know how, maybe adrenaline gives you strength, and she heaved it into the lake. The splash was big. Water sprayed up, catching the moonlight. The suitcase bobbed for just a second, then sank. Gone. Into water so deep they'd never found Tommy Chen's body when he drowned here in 1987. Diana stood there breathing hard. I could see her shoulders moving up and down. Then she wiped her hands on her pants, got back in her car, and drove away. Headlights still off until she was halfway up the road. I stood in that kitchen for 20 minutes, maybe 30. The tea kettle started screaming, and I nearly jumped out of my skin. My hands shook so badly I could barely turn off the stove. Think, Margaret, I told myself. Think clearly. But my thoughts were racing like spooked horses. What had Diana thrown in that lake? Why in the middle of the night? Why the gloves, the all-black outfit, the constant looking around? And the biggest question, the one that made me feel sick. What had my son married? I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat at the kitchen table watching the sky turn from black to gray to pink, and I tried to make sense of what I'd seen. Diana was married to my Thomas. They'd been together 11 years, married for 10. She'd given me 2 beautiful grandchildren, Emma and Sophie. She volunteered at the elementary school. She brought me soup when I had the flu. She cried at Harold's funeral and held my hand at the burial. She was family. But family doesn't sneak around at 2 in the morning throwing mysterious suitcases into lakes. By 6:30, I heard Thomas's truck in the driveway. He lived just 3 miles away in the house Harold and I had helped them buy. Every morning he stopped by to check on me before heading to his construction job. My good boy, my only child. The front door opened. "Mom, you up?" "In the kitchen," I called. Thomas came in looking exactly like his father had at 35. Same broad shoulders, same dark hair starting to thin at the crown, same gentle eyes. He wore his work clothes jeans with paint stains and a flannel shirt. "You look terrible," he said, going straight to the coffee maker. "Bad night." "Couldn't sleep." "Still having those dreams about Dad." Something like that. Thomas poured coffee into Harold's favorite mug, the one that said, "World's Best Fisherman," even though Harold had never caught anything bigger than a sunfish. He sat across from me and studied my face. "What's wrong?" Everything I wanted to say. Your wife was at the lake at 2 in the morning disposing of something she doesn't want anyone to find. Nothing. Just tired. You're a terrible liar, Mom. Always have been. That made me smile despite everything. When Thomas was 7, he'd tried to convince me the dog had eaten his homework. The dog had been dead for 3 years. "Where's Diana this morning?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Still sleeping when I left. She's been exhausted lately. I'm worried about her, actually. She's been acting strange." My stomach dropped. "Strange how?" Thomas shrugged and sipped his coffee. "Distracted. Jumpy. Last week I came up behind her while she was on the phone and she practically hit the ceiling. Hung up real quick and said it was just a telemarketer, but her hands were shaking. Maybe she's stressed about something. That's what I thought. I asked if everything was okay, if maybe she needed to see someone, talk to a therapist or whatever. She bit my head off. Said I was being ridiculous, that she was fine, that I should stop hovering." Thomas looked hurt. My son was a hoverer, always had been. Even as a little boy, he'd worry about people. Worried about kids at school who didn't have lunch money. Worried about stray cats. Worried about his old mother living alone. "Diana's entitled to her privacy," I said carefully. I know, but we're married. We're supposed to share things." He set down his mug. "Do you think she's happy, Mom, with me? I mean, of course she is. Why would you even ask that?" "I don't know. Sometimes I feel like she's somewhere else, even when she's standing right in front of me. And the money." My ears perked up. "What money?" "It's probably nothing, but I noticed some large withdrawals from our savings account. 3,000 here, 5,000 there. When I asked about it, Diana said she was buying furniture and clothes for the girls, but I haven't seen any new furniture. Haven't seen any new clothes either." $8,000, maybe more. Withdrawn and unaccounted for. "Maybe she's planning a surprise," I suggested weakly. "Maybe." Thomas didn't sound convinced. "Or maybe I'm just being paranoid. Diana's a good person, a great mother. I trust her." Trust. That word sat between us heavy as a stone. Thomas finished his coffee and stood. "I should get to work. The Martinez job is behind schedule and the crew's waiting for me. You going to be okay today?" "I'm always okay." He kissed my forehead like he'd done since he was tall enough to reach. "Love you, Mom." "Love you too, baby." After he left, I sat alone with my thoughts. They weren't good company. I kept seeing that suitcase sinking into black water. Kept seeing Diana's furtive movements, her constant surveillance of the area. Kept hearing Thomas say Diana had been acting strange, jumpy, withdrawn. And the money, $8,000 gone. What does $8,000 buy? What requires payment in cash with no paper trail? I didn't want to think it, didn't want to let my mind go there. But it did anyway, sliding into dark possibilities like that suitcase sliding beneath the water. Drugs, gambling debts, blackmail, an affair. "Stop it," I said out loud. Stop jumping to conclusions. But I couldn't stop. All day I moved through my house like a ghost, unable to focus on anything. I put laundry in the washer and forgot to turn it on. Started making lunch and realized at 2 o'clock I'd never eaten it. Tried to read my book club selection and read the same page 7 times without comprehending a word. At 4:30, my phone rang. Diana's name appeared on the screen. My hand hovered over the phone. Should I answer? What would I say? I saw you last night disposing of evidence. I let it ring. Voicemail picked up. Hi, Margaret, it's Diana. Just calling to see if you need anything from the store. I'm taking the girls shopping for summer clothes and thought I'd check. Call me back if you think of anything. Love you. Love you. She said it so easily, so naturally, like someone who meant it. I played the message again and again, listening for some hint of guilt in her voice, some tremor that would confirm my suspicions. But Diana sounded normal, cheerful even, like someone who hadn't been throwing suspicious luggage into lakes in the dead of night. Maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe in the darkness, in my grief-fogged state, I'd misidentified the car, misidentified the person. Diana wasn't the only woman in town who owned a silver Honda. Maybe it had been someone else entirely, and my paranoid mind had conjured up a nightmare from nothing. Except I knew Diana's shape, knew the way she moved, knew her car. It had been her. I was sure of it. At 6 o'clock, my phone rang again. Thomas. Hey, Mom. Diana's making pot roast tonight. Her grandmother's recipe. Want to come over for dinner? The girls have been asking about you. Pot roast. Family dinner. Normal, lovely, innocent. I don't know, honey. I'm feeling a bit tired. Come on, you have to eat anyway. Might as well eat with people who love you. Say yes. Please, Diana specifically asked me to invite you. Diana wanted me there. Diana, who'd been disposing of suspicious luggage less than 24 hours ago, wanted me at her dinner table. Why? To keep up appearances, to make sure I hadn't seen anything, or because she genuinely loved her mother-in-law and wanted to share a meal. Okay, I heard myself say. What time? 7. And Mom, thank you. It'll mean a lot to Diana. I hung up and immediately regretted agreeing. How was I supposed to sit at Diana's table, eat her food, smile at my grandchildren, and pretend everything was fine? How could I look her in the eye? But I had to. If I wanted answers, if I wanted to understand what was happening, I needed to observe Diana up close, watch for tells, listen for lies. I drove to Thomas's house at 6:45. They lived in a beautiful craftsman-style home with a big front porch and a yard full of Emma's chalk drawings. A plastic playhouse sat under the oak tree Harold had planted the year Emma was born. Everything looked perfect, picture perfect, magazine cover perfect. And maybe it was all a lie. Diana answered the door before I could knock. She wore a blue sundress and had her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, barefoot, smiling. She looked like every mother in every TV commercial for Family Values. Margaret, come in, come in. The roast just came out and it's perfect if I do say so myself. She hugged me. Actually hugged me warm and tight and seemingly genuine. I stood rigid in her arms, breathing in her perfume, wondering what secret she was hiding. Grandma. Emma came barreling down the hallway, 8 years old, and all elbows and energy. I made you a picture at school. It's you and me and Sophie and Daddy and Mommy, and we're all at the beach, and there's a whale. There are no whales at Lake Michigan, dummy, Sophie said, appearing behind her sister. She was 6 and had Thomas's serious eyes. It's imagination, Sophie. Miss Roberts said we could use imagination. Girls don't fight, Diana said mildly. Sophie apologized to your sister. Sorry, Emma. It's okay. They ran off to set the table, leaving Diana and me in the entryway, alone. They're good girls, I said. The best. I'm so lucky. Diana smiled at me. You look tired, Margaret. Are you sleeping okay? Was she fishing? Trying to find out if I'd been awake last night. On and off? I said carefully. I know it's hard, especially with the anniversary coming up. Harold was such a wonderful man. She touched my arm. Her hand was warm, her expression sympathetic. If she was acting, she was better than any Oscar winner I'd ever seen. Thomas called from the dining room. Food's getting cold, ladies. Dinner was surreal. We sat at the table like a normal family. Diana served pot roast and roasted vegetables and fresh bread. Emma chattered about her school play. Sophie showed me a loose tooth. Thomas told stories about work about the Martinez family's impossible demands for their kitchen renovation, and Diana smiled and laughed and poured more wine and seemed completely, utterly, perfectly normal. I watched her, every movement, every expression, looking for cracks in the facade. But there were none. She was attentive to the girls, affectionate with Thomas, kind to me. When I dropped my fork, she got me a clean one before I could even ask. When I mentioned my garden was overgrown, she immediately offered to help me weed this weekend. "I love working in the garden," she said. "It's so peaceful, therapeutic." "Diana's been stressed lately," Thomas said, reaching over to squeeze her hand. "Working in the dirt might be good for you, honey." Something flickered across Diana's face, brief, almost invisible. But I saw it. Fear. Just for a second, then it was gone, replaced by her smile. "I'm not stressed," she said lightly. "Just busy. You know how it is with 2 kids and all the school activities and the house and everything." "You work too hard," I said, testing her. "You should take a break, get away for a while." "Maybe," Diana said. "Although I can't really imagine going anywhere right now. Too much to do, too much to manage here." She wasn't planning to run, or if she was hiding it well. After dinner, Diana insisted on driving me home. Thomas needed to help Emma with her math homework, and Sophie's bedtime was approaching, so I couldn't refuse without seeming strange. I sat in Diana's passenger seat, that same Honda I'd seen at 2 in the morning, and tried not to look at her. The drive to my house was only 10 minutes, but it felt like hours. "Margaret," Diana said about halfway there, "can I ask you something?" My heart jumped. "Of course." "Do you think I'm a good wife, a good mother?" I turned to look at her. In the dashboard lights, her face looked younger, more vulnerable, almost frightened. "Why would you ask that? I just wonder sometimes. I try so hard to do everything right, to be everything Thomas needs, everything the girls need. But what if it's not enough? What if—" She trailed off. "What if what—" "Nothing. Never mind. I'm just being silly." She pulled into my driveway but didn't put the car in park. We sat there with the engine running, both of us staring ahead. "You're a wonderful wife and mother," I said finally. "Thomas is lucky to have you." The lie tasted bitter. "Thank you," Diana whispered. "That means more than you know. I've always wanted your approval, Margaret, from the very beginning. You're such a strong woman. You and Harold had such a beautiful marriage. I've always hoped Thomas and I could have what you two had." She turned to look at me. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I would never do anything to hurt this family," she said. "Never. No matter what happens, I need you to know that. Everything I do for them." There was something in her voice, desperation pleading, like she was trying to tell me something without actually telling me. "Diana, if you're in trouble, I'm not. I'm fine. Everything's fine." She forced a smile. "I should let you get inside. It's late." I got out of the car feeling more confused than ever. Diana drove away and I stood in my driveway watching her taillights disappear. Everything about her seemed genuine. Her love for Thomas and the girls, her respect for me, her insistence that she was fine. But I'd seen what I'd seen. That suitcase was real. The secretive behavior was real. The missing money was real. Something was very, very wrong, and Diana was at the center of it. I went inside and locked the door behind me. The house felt emptier than usual, more silent. I walked through the rooms, touching Harold's things. His reading chair, his collection of fishing lures displayed in a shadow box, the photo on the mantel of our wedding day, both of us so young and stupid and happy. "Harold," I whispered to his picture, "what should I do? What would you do?" Harold would have confronted her directly. He wasn't one for sneaking around or playing games. He believed in honesty and facing problems head on. But I wasn't Harold. I was scared. Scared of what I might find. Scared of what it would do to Thomas if his wife was involved in something criminal. Scared of what it would do to Emma and Sophie. And yet I couldn't just ignore it. Couldn't pretend I hadn't seen anything. That suitcase was at the bottom of Crystal Lake right now, and it held answers. I needed to know what those answers were. The next morning, I called Janet. We'd been best friends since third grade, had raised our kids together, had held each other through divorces and deaths, and every crisis in between. If anyone could help me figure this out, it was Janet. "Meet me for coffee," I said when she answered. "I need to talk." "Is this about Harold, Margaret, if you're having another bad day?" "It's not about Harold. It's about Diana." Silence. Then, "I'll be at Betty's Diner in 20 minutes. I got there first and claimed our usual booth in the back. Janet arrived exactly 20 minutes later, her gray hair pulled into a messy bun, wearing the same tracksuit she'd owned for a decade. She slid into the booth and fixed me with her sharp eyes. "Talk," she said. So I did. I told her everything. The middle of the night sighting at the lake, Diana's black clothes and furtive behavior, the suitcase sinking into the water, Thomas's comments about Diana acting strange, the missing money. Janet listened without interrupting. When I finished, she sat back and exhaled slowly. "Well," she said, "that's not good. I know. What do you think is in the suitcase?" "I don't know. That's what's driving me crazy. I keep imagining all these horrible things." "Like what? Money? Drugs? Documents she needs to hide? I even thought maybe—" I lowered my voice. "Maybe something worse, like evidence of a crime." Janet's eyebrows shot up. "You think Diana killed someone?" "No, I don't know, probably not. But why else would you throw a heavy suitcase into a lake in the middle of the night wearing gloves?" "The gloves are damning," Janet admitted. "Nobody wears gloves in June unless they're trying not to leave evidence." We sat in grim silence while the waitress brought coffee. After she left, Janet leaned forward. "Have you considered that maybe Diana is the victim here?" "What do you mean?" "Maybe she's being blackmailed or threatened. Maybe someone's forcing her to do things, and she's trying to protect the family by handling it herself." I hadn't thought of that. In all my imagining, I'd cast Diana as the villain, but what if she was actually in danger? "If that's true, she needs help," I said. "She needs to tell the police." "Maybe she can't. Maybe whoever's threatening her said they'd hurt the girls if she told anyone." The thought made me cold. Emma and Sophie in danger unthinkable. "So what do I do?" Janet stirred sugar into her coffee, thinking. "You have a few options. 1, confront Diana directly. 2, talk to Thomas and let him handle it. 3, go to the police with what you saw. Or 4, find out what's in that suitcase yourself." I stared at her. "How? It's at the bottom of the lake." "So you get it out. Hire a diver. There are companies that do underwater recovery. I saw something about it on the news last year when that teenager drove his car into Miller's Pond." "Oh, that's crazy." "It's thorough. Look, Margaret, if you want real answers, that's how you get them. Otherwise, you're just speculating, and speculation will eat you alive. Trust me." Janet's face went dark. "When I suspected Jim was cheating, I drove myself crazy imagining all the things he might be doing. Turned out the truth was different than what I'd imagined, but at least I knew. Knowing is better than wondering." She was right. The not knowing was torture. Every scenario I'd invented in my head was probably worse than reality. Probably. Unless reality was actually worse. "I wouldn't even know how to find a diver," I said. "Yellow pages, internet, ask around. Someone in town must know someone. Don't mention Diana or what you're looking for. Just say you dropped something valuable in the lake and need it recovered." It seemed insane. Hiring a diver to retrieve my daughter-in-law's secret suitcase so I could investigate her potentially criminal activities. What had my life become? "Think about it," Janet said. "But don't think too long. Every day that passes, that suitcase settles deeper into the silt, gets harder to find." She was right about that, too. If I was going to do this crazy thing, I needed to do it soon. We finished our coffee and talked about other things, normal things, but my mind was elsewhere. It was at the bottom of Crystal Lake, circling that suitcase like a shark. After Janet left, I sat in the diner booth for another hour. The lunch rush came and went. The waitress refilled my coffee 3 times and finally asked if I was okay. "Just thinking," I told her. "Must be some serious thoughts to keep you here this long." "You have no idea." When I finally left, I'd made my decision. I was going to get that suitcase. I had to know, for Thomas's sake, for the girl's sake, and yes, for my own sake too, because not knowing was going to drive me absolutely insane. At home, I opened my laptop, Harold's old dinosaur that took 5 minutes to boot up, and searched for underwater recovery services near me. 3 companies came up. 2 were over an hour away. The third, Lakeside Diving and Recovery, was right here in town. I called before I could change my mind. Lakeside Diving, this is Rick. Hello, I need something recovered from Crystal Lake. Okay, sure. What did you lose? Phone keys, wedding ring. A suitcase. Pause. A suitcase. Yes, I was moving and dropped it in the water by accident. It has some valuable personal items in it. The lie came surprisingly easily. When did you drop it? 2 nights ago. And whereabouts in the lake? I gave him the location, describing the spot where Diana had parked. That's pretty deep there, Rick said. Maybe 40-50 feet, but it's doable. When do you want me to look? Me as soon as possible. I could do Saturday morning if the weather holds. 7 a.m. work for you. Saturday was 4 days away. 4 days of waiting, wondering, imagining. That's fine. How much do you charge? $300 for the dive, another $200 if I actually find something. Cash or check. $500. I had it in my emergency fund, the money I'd saved from Harold's life insurance. He'd want me to use it for something important. Surely this qualified. I'll be there Saturday at 7. Thank you. After I hung up, I sat on the couch feeling nauseated. I'd done it. I'd actually hired someone to retrieve Diana's secret suitcase. In 4 days, I would know what she'd been hiding. 4 days to wait. 4 days to pretend everything was normal. 4 days to look at my grandchildren and wonder if their mother was involved in something that would tear the family apart. The first day wasn't too bad. Thomas stopped by in the morning, and we talked about the weather, about his construction projects, about whether I wanted to come to Emma's soccer game on Friday. I smiled and nodded and acted like I wasn't slowly losing my mind. Diana called in the afternoon to ask if I needed groceries. Her voice was cheerful, normal, showing no signs of stress or guilt. Either she was innocent of whatever I suspected, or she was a phenomenal actress. The second day was harder. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that suitcase, saw Diana's furtive movements, saw Thomas's trusting face. At 3 in the morning, I got up and stood at the kitchen window staring at the lake. The water was calm dark, keeping its secrets. Emma's soccer game on Friday was torture. I sat on the bleachers with Thomas and Diana cheering as Emma ran up and down the field. Diana brought snacks and chatted with the other mothers. She looked happy, relaxed, like someone with nothing to hide. Several times she touched my arm or laughed at something I said, and I wanted to scream. "What are you hiding?" I wanted to shout. "What's in that lake?" But I smiled and clapped when Emma scored a goal and pretended everything was fine. That night I couldn't eat dinner. Thomas noticed. "Mom, you're losing weight. Are you eating enough?" "I'm fine, honey." "You don't look fine. You look exhausted. Are you sleeping at all?" "Some." Diana put her hand on mine. "Margaret, if you're having trouble sleeping, I can give you the name of my doctor. She prescribed something for me when I was having insomnia, and it really helped." Diana had insomnia. Diana needed medication to sleep. Another crack in the perfect facade. "When were you having trouble sleeping?" Thomas asked his wife. "Oh, a few months ago. It wasn't a big deal." "You didn't tell me." "I didn't want you to worry." Diana smiled at him. "You already worry too much." "Maybe I have good reason to worry." The tension between them was sudden and sharp. Diana's smile faltered. Thomas looked annoyed. I sat there feeling like I was watching something private I shouldn't see. "Everything okay with you two?" I asked. "Fine," Diana said quickly. "Perfect," Thomas said at the same time, though his tone suggested otherwise. We finished dinner in uncomfortable silence. That night, alone in my house, I paced. 24 hours until the dive. 24 hours until answers. The waiting was unbearable. I tried to watch television but couldn't focus. Tried to read but the words swam on the page. Tried to sleep but my mind raced with possibilities. What would Rick find tomorrow? What would be in that suitcase? What would I do with the information? And the biggest question, what if I was wrong? What if there was a perfectly innocent explanation for everything and I was about to violate Diana's privacy and trust for nothing? But I couldn't be wrong. The evidence was too damning. The middle-of-the-night disposal, the gloves, the money, Diana's strange behavior. It all added up to something bad. Didn't it? At 6 a.m. Saturday morning, I gave up on sleep entirely. I dressed in jeans and a sweatshirt and drove to Crystal Lake just as the sun was rising. The water looked beautiful in the early light, peaceful and serene. Hard to imagine it was hiding secrets. Rick's truck was already there. He was a man in his 50s with a weathered face and kind eyes. He wore a wetsuit and was organizing diving equipment. "You're early," he said when I got out of my car. "Couldn't sleep." "Excited to get your stuff back, huh? Must be pretty valuable." "Sentimental value," I lied. Rick nodded. "I get it. I once recovered a guitar from this lake. Guy's grandfather had played it in World War II. He was crying when I brought it up. So what's in this suitcase, if you don't mind me asking?" "Photos, family documents, things from my late husband." The lies were getting easier. I hated that. "I'll do my best to find it. You said it went in right about here." I pointed to the spot. Rick studied the water, then put on his diving mask and tank. "Wish me luck," he said, and stepped into the lake. I watched him disappear beneath the surface. The water rippled and then went still. I waited. 5 minutes, 10, 15. How long could someone stay underwater? Was he okay? Had something gone wrong? At minute 23, Rick's head broke the surface. He swam toward shore, and as he got closer, I saw he was towing something, the suitcase. My heart hammered against my ribs. There it was, Diana's secret pulled from the depths. Rick dragged it onto the shore. Water poured from it. The suitcase was dark blue, expensive looking, with wheels and a retractable handle, the kind that cost hundreds of dollars. "Found it about 40 feet down," Rick said, breathing hard. "Right where you said it would be. Lucky break." Lucky. That wasn't the word I would have chosen. The suitcase sat between us, dripping and ominous. Now that it was here in front of me, I was terrified to open it. Once I looked inside, I couldn't unknow what I found. My relationship with Diana would change forever. Thomas's marriage might explode. The girls' lives might fall apart. But I had to know. "You want to open it here?" Rick asked. "Make sure everything's okay." "Yes." My hands shook as I reached for the zipper. It was stiff from the water. I pulled, and finally it gave way. The suitcase fell open. I looked inside, and my whole world shifted. Inside the suitcase were clothes, women's clothes, old-fashioned dresses faded and worn. Underneath them, photograph albums with water seeping between the pages. A jewelry box. Letters tied with string. And at the very bottom, a driver's license sealed in a plastic bag. I picked up the license with trembling fingers. The photo showed a younger Diana, maybe 15 years younger, but the name on it wasn't Diana Morrison. It said Jennifer Walsh. The address was from Illinois, a town I'd never heard of. "Everything okay?" Rick asked. I couldn't speak, couldn't process what I was seeing. My daughter-in-law had a different name, a different identity. She'd been someone else before she became Diana. "Ma'am, you all right? You look like you're about to pass out." "I'm fine. I just need a minute." Rick helped me sit on a nearby rock. "That's some reaction to old photos. You sure you're okay? How much do I owe you?" $500, like I said, but honestly, maybe you should sit for a bit longer. You're white as a sheet. I pulled cash from my purse with shaking hands and gave it to him. "Thank you for your help." "You want assistance getting that suitcase to your car?" "No, I've got it." Rick looked uncertain, but he took his money and started packing up his diving equipment. I sat there staring at the open suitcase at the life Diana had buried at the bottom of Crystal Lake. Jennifer Walsh. Who was Jennifer Walsh? Why had Diana changed her name? What was she running from? After Rick left, I carefully repacked everything into the suitcase, memorizing the order so I could put it back exactly as it was. The wet clothes, the albums, the jewelry box, the letters, the license. My mind spun with questions. I zipped it closed and dragged it to my car, heaving it into the trunk. It was heavier than I expected, weighed down by water and secrets. At home, I locked all the doors and carried the suitcase to my bedroom. I spread towels on the floor and opened it again, laying everything out carefully. The dresses were from the 80s or 90s, polyester and dated. The jewelry box contained cheap costume jewelry, the kind young women wear when they can't afford real gold. The letters were addressed to Jennifer Walsh from someone named Robert. I opened one, the ink smeared but still readable. "Jenny, I'm sorry for what I said. Please come back. I love you. I can't live without you. Robert." The next letter was more desperate. "Jenny, it's been 3 weeks. Where are you? Your mother won't tell me anything. Just talk to me, please. I'm going crazy without you." The third letter made my blood run cold. "You can't hide forever. I'll find you. You're mine, Jenny. You've always been mine, and you always will be. No matter where you go, no matter what name you use, I'll find you." That letter was dated June 1998, 27 years ago. Diana would have been, 1920? I opened the photograph albums next. The pages were waterlogged photos peeling away from their plastic sleeves, but I could still make out the images. A young Diana Jenny, whatever her name was, with a tall man with dark hair and cold eyes. In early photos, they looked happy, his arm around her shoulders, both of them smiling at the camera. But as I flipped through the album, something changed. In later photos, Jenny's smile looked forced. In one picture, I could see a bruise on her arm partially hidden by her sleeve. In another, her eyes looked hollow dead. The man was in every single photograph, possessive, controlling. Even in pictures where Jenny was clearly trying to focus on something else, a birthday cake, a Christmas tree, he was there, his hand on her, claiming her. This was Robert. It had to be. And Jenny had run from him. She'd run so far and so completely that she'd changed her entire identity. Jennifer Walsh from Illinois had died, and Diana Morrison had been born. My son had married a woman who didn't exist, at least not on paper. Did Thomas know? Had Diana ever told him the truth? I thought back to their wedding 10 years ago. Diana had no family there. She'd said her parents were dead, that she had no siblings, no relatives to invite. At the time, I'd felt sad for her, this orphaned young woman marrying into our family. Harold and I had tried to make her feel extra welcome, tried to fill the hole where her family should have been. But maybe her family wasn't dead. Maybe she just couldn't contact them because she was supposed to be dead too. Maybe Jennifer Walsh's disappearance had been reported. Maybe people had searched for her. Maybe Robert had never stopped looking. And now, Diana was throwing away the evidence of her old life, getting rid of anything that could connect her to Jennifer Walsh. Why now? After all these years, why the sudden urgency to bury her past, unless Robert had found her? The thought hit me like a fist to the stomach. What if Robert had tracked Diana down after 27 years? What if he was here in town, threatening her? That would explain the money. Blackmail. Pay me or I'll tell everyone who you really are. Pay me or I'll take you back. Pay me or I'll hurt your family. Diana was protecting Thomas and the girls. She was dealing with her nightmare alone because she thought that was the only way to keep them safe. I had to talk to her, had to tell her I knew that she didn't have to face this by herself. But how? How do you tell someone you've been spying on them that you hired a diver to recover the suitcase they threw in the lake, that you've gone through their most private belongings? The phone rang, and I jumped so hard I knocked over the jewelry box. Plastic pearls scattered across the floor. The caller ID showed Diana's number. I stared at the phone. Should I answer? What would I say? It kept ringing. On the 5th ring, I picked up. Hello? Margaret, hi. I was wondering if you're free this afternoon. I'd love to bring the girls by. They made cookies yesterday, and Sophie insisted we save some for you. Her voice was so normal, so cheerful, like she wasn't being blackmailed by an abusive ex from a life she'd tried to erase. Actually, Diana, I was hoping we could talk, just the two of us. Pause. Is everything okay? I think we should have a conversation. Adult to adult. Can you come by maybe around 1? Another pause, longer this time. Sure. Is Thomas invited to this conversation? Not yet. This is between you and me first. Margaret, you're scaring me. Did I do something wrong? Yes, I wanted to say. You lied to my son. You married him under a false name. You've been living a lie for 10 years. But instead I said, just come over. We'll talk then. Okay, 1 o'clock. I'll be there. She hung up. I sat on my bedroom floor surrounded by Jennifer Walsh's belongings and wondered what on earth I was going to say. How do you even start that conversation? Hello, Diana? Or should I call you Jennifer? I had 3 hours to figure it out. 3 hours to prepare. I repacked the suitcase carefully, trying to put everything back exactly as Diana had arranged it. Then I carried it to the garage and put it in the far corner covered with a tarp. Evidence, just in case of what I didn't know, but something told me I might need proof of what I'd found. At 12:45, I was pacing the living room. I'd changed clothes twice, made coffee I couldn't drink, rehearsed opening lines that all sounded terrible. How do you tell someone you've uncovered their entire hidden past? Diana's Honda pulled into the driveway at exactly 1 o'clock. She was always punctual. I watched through the window as she got out of the car. She wore jeans and a white blouse, her hair down around her shoulders. She looked nervous, her hands fidgeting with her car keys. I opened the door before she could knock. Come in. Where are the girls? I asked as she stepped inside. With Thomas. I told him I needed to run errands. He's taking them to the park. Diana studied my face. Margaret, you're really worrying me. What's this about? I led her to the living room. We sat down me on Harold's old recliner, Diana on the couch. She perched on the edge like she might need to run at any moment. I saw you, I said. Tuesday night, 2 in the morning, at the lake. All the color drained from Diana's face. Her hands gripped the couch cushions. You saw me. I saw you throw a suitcase into the water. I saw everything. Diana closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were filled with tears. Oh God, Margaret, I can explain. I'm sure you can, but first I need to ask you something. Who is Jennifer Walsh? She made a sound like I'd punched her. A gasp, choked and painful. Her whole body went rigid. How do you know that name? I hired a diver. I had the suitcase recovered this morning. I've seen everything, Diana. The clothes, the letters, the driver's license. I know you're not who you say you are. Diana stood up abruptly. She walked to the window, her back to me, her shoulders shaking. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Does Thomas know? Not yet. That depends on you. She turned around. Tears streamed down her face, but her expression was fierce, almost angry. You had no right. That was mine. Those were my things, my past, and you had no right to drag them up. You're married to my son. You're the mother of my grandchildren. I have every right to know if you're putting them in danger. I'm not putting anyone in danger. I'm trying to protect them. From what? From Robert? At the sound of that name, Diana's knees buckled. She collapsed back onto the couch and put her face in her hands. Her whole body shook with sobs. He found me, she said through her tears. After all these years, he found me. I felt a mix of vindication and horror. I'd been right, but being right didn't feel good. It felt terrible. Tell me everything, I said gently. Start at the beginning. Diana wiped her eyes and took a shuddering breath. I was 19 when I met Robert. He was 25, handsome, charming. He worked at the grocery store where I was a cashier. He asked me out and I thought I'd won the lottery. This gorgeous older man was interested in me. She laughed bitterly. I was so stupid, so naive. I didn't see the warning signs, the way he got angry when I talked to other guys, the way he wanted to know where I was every minute, the way he isolated me from my friends and family. By the time I realized what he was, it was too late. I was trapped. He hurt you. He did more than hurt me. He owned me. For 3 years I lived in hell. He controlled everything. What I wore, who I talked to, where I went. If I disobeyed him, he punished me. And the punishments got worse over time. Diana pulled up her sleeve. Even after all these years, I could see the scars, thin white lines up and down her arm. Cigarette burns, she said flatly. That was his favorite. He said they were reminders of who I belonged to. I felt sick. This beautiful, kind woman who'd been part of my family for 10 years had lived through something I couldn't even imagine. Why didn't you leave? I tried, twice. The first time he found me within a day. He dragged me back and broke 2 of my ribs. Told me if I ever tried again, he'd kill me. The second time I made it 3 weeks. I was staying with a friend in another city. He found me there too. Beat my friend unconscious and took me home. After that, I was too scared to try again. What changed? Robert did. He got worse, more violent, more possessive. I knew if I stayed, he was going to kill me eventually. So I started planning. I saved every penny I could hide from him. I stole his spare car keys. And one day when he went to work, I took everything I could carry, and I ran. Diana's voice shook, but she kept going. I drove for 2 days straight. I sold Robert's car in Ohio and bought a bus ticket with cash. I went to a women's shelter, and they helped me. They helped me disappear. New social security number, new birth certificate, new everything. Jennifer Walsh died, and Diana Morrison was born. And you came here. Eventually. I lived in 3 different states, first working cash jobs, always looking over my shoulder. But Robert was smart. He hired private investigators. He had connections. Every time I started to feel safe, something would happen. I'd see someone watching me. I'd find notes on my car. Once I came home and someone had broken in. Nothing was stolen, but everything had been moved slightly, just enough that I'd know someone had been there. It was Robert's way of telling me he could find me anytime he wanted. Why didn't you go to the police? Diana laughed again, harsh and broken. I tried. They said there was no evidence of stalking. The break-in could have been anyone. The notes weren't signed. Unless Robert actually hurt me, they couldn't do anything. And even if they could, Robert had friends in the police department back in Illinois. I didn't trust anyone in uniform. So you kept running. For years, until I met Thomas. That was 8 years after I'd left Robert. 8 years of looking over my shoulder and jumping at shadows. But Thomas made me feel safe for the first time since I was a teenager. He was so different from Robert. Kind, gentle, respectful. He didn't try to control me. He just loved me, and I loved him so much it hurt. Diana's eyes met mine. I wanted to tell him the truth. I wanted to so badly, but I was terrified. What if he didn't believe me? What if he thought I was crazy? What if he rejected me because of my past? So I told myself I'd tell him later, after we dated for a while, then after we got engaged, then after the wedding. But later never came because I was a coward. You should have told him. I know. God, Margaret, I know. But by the time I realized I had to, we had Emma and then Sophie. And I kept thinking, what if Robert finds me and Thomas doesn't know how dangerous he is? What if he tries to reason with him and gets hurt? I thought keeping the secret was protecting him. And now Robert's found you again. Diana nodded miserably. 3 months ago, I got a letter. No return address. It just said, "Found you, Jenny. Looking good. See you soon." I knew immediately it was him. Nobody else calls me Jenny. Nobody else would write something like that. Why didn't you tell Thomas then? Because I was going to run. I was going to take the girls and disappear again. Start over somewhere new. But then I realized I couldn't do that to Thomas. He didn't deserve to come home and find his family gone. And the girls, they're old enough now. They have friends' school lives. I couldn't rip them away from everything they know. So what did you do? I tried to handle it myself. Robert started calling me blocked number, always when I was alone. He said he wanted money, $50,000, and he'd go away forever. I didn't believe him, but what choice did I have? I started withdrawing cash from our savings. Thomas noticed, but I made excuses. I thought if I gave Robert the money, he'd leave, and I could confess everything to Thomas after. Clean slate. But Robert didn't leave. No, he took the money and asked for more. And when I said I didn't have more, he said that was fine. He'd just come meet my husband and kids instead. Tell them all about Jenny and what a lying whore their wife and mother is. Diana's voice broke. I panicked. I realized the only way to stop him was to erase every trace of Jennifer Walsh. If there was no proof I was ever her, he had no leverage. So I gathered everything from my old life, the one suitcase I'd kept hidden all these years with my old ID letters, photos, everything, and I threw it in the lake. You should have gone to the police. With what evidence? The letters are from 27 years ago. The calls are untraceable. Robert's never actually threatened violence, not in a way I can prove. And here's the real problem, Margaret. My new identity isn't exactly legal. The shelter helped me, but it wasn't done through official channels. If the police investigate, they might find out Diana Morrison doesn't really exist. And then what? Do I get arrested for fraud? Do I lose my kids? I hadn't thought of that. Diana had been living under a false identity for decades. Even if her reasons were good, even if she was the victim, there could be legal consequences. There has to be something we can do. There's nothing. I've been over it 1,000 times in my head. I either pay Robert forever, or I run, or I tell Thomas the truth and hope he doesn't leave me when he realizes his entire marriage is built on a lie. We sat in heavy silence. Everything Diana had said made a horrible kind of sense. She'd been 19 and terrified, running from a man who wanted to own her. She'd done what she had to do to survive. And then she'd fallen in love and built a life, and couldn't figure out how to reconcile her past with her present. "You have to tell Thomas," I said finally. "I know. He'll understand. He loves you." Does he? Does he love Diana? Or does he love the woman he thinks Diana is? What if, when he knows the truth, he realizes he doesn't actually know me at all? Thomas isn't like that. He's not going to abandon you. You can't promise that. She was right. I couldn't. But I knew my son. I'd raised him to be compassionate and understanding. Surely he'd see that Diana had done what she needed to survive. "What about Robert?" I asked. "He's still out there, still a threat." "I know. That's what keeps me up at night. I gave him everything I had, but it won't be enough. It's never enough with men like Robert. He doesn't really want money. He wants control. He wants me back under his thumb. And if he can't have that, he'll settle for destroying everything I've built. Then we need to find a way to stop him. Legally, permanently." Diana looked at me with something like hope in her eyes. "How? I don't know yet, but you're not alone anymore. I know the truth now. Together we'll figure this out. You're not angry with me for lying to Thomas, to you, to everyone." I thought about it. Was I angry? Maybe a little. But mostly I felt sad for this woman who'd been fighting a lonely battle for so long. "I'm not angry, but Diana, you need to tell Thomas today, tonight, as soon as possible, because if Robert shows up and Thomas doesn't know what's happening, someone could get hurt." Diana nodded slowly. "You're right. I'll tell him tonight after the girls go to bed. God, Margaret, I'm so scared. I'll be there with you if you want." "No, this is something I need to do alone. But thank you. Thank you for not hating me." She stood to leave. At the door, she turned back. "The suitcase. What did you do with it?" "It's in my garage. Do you want it back?" "No. Keep it, or throw it away, or give it to the police if it comes to that. I don't want it anymore. Jennifer Walsh is dead. She's been dead for 27 years. I need to stop trying to bury her and just accept she's part of who I am now." After Diana left, I sat in the living room feeling drained. The morning's revelations played on repeat in my mind. Diana's past, Robert's threats, the years of running and hiding and fear. And through it all, she'd been a good wife, a good mother, a good daughter-in-law. She'd built a beautiful life from the ashes of a nightmare. But her nightmare wasn't over. Robert was still out there, still threatening, still dangerous. And tonight Diana would tell Thomas everything, and I had no idea how he'd react. I called Janet. "You recovered the suitcase, didn't you?" she said before I could speak. "What was in it?" I told her everything. When I finished, Janet was silent for a long moment. "That poor girl," she said finally. "All these years, and we had no idea what she'd survived. She's telling Thomas tonight. How do you think he'll take it?" "I don't know. I hope he'll be understanding. But finding out your wife has been lying about her identity for 10 years, that's a lot to process." "Maybe. But if he loves her, really loves her, he'll see past the lies to the scared girl who was just trying to survive." I hope you're right. That evening was the longest of my life. I kept checking my phone, waiting for Thomas to call. Would he be angry, hurt, confused? Would he call his mother for advice? Or would he be too shocked to talk to anyone? At 9 o'clock, my phone finally rang. Thomas. Mom, can you come over? Diana told me something and I need you here, please. His voice sounded strange, flat, like he was in shock. I'll be right there. I drove to their house faster than I should have. Every light was on inside. Through the living room window, I could see Thomas pacing. Diana sat on the couch, her face in her hands. Thomas opened the door before I could knock. His eyes were red. He'd been crying. Mom, did you know? Did you know about any of this? Not until today. I swear. He let me in. Diana looked up when I entered. Her face was blotchy and swollen from tears. I told him everything, she whispered. And I don't know what to do with it, Thomas said. His voice was rising. My wife isn't my wife. Her name isn't her name. Her entire past is a lie. How am I supposed to process that? Thomas, you need to calm down and listen. I am listening. I've been listening for 2 hours. Diana or Jennifer or whoever she is has been talking and talking, and I still can't wrap my head around it. She lied to me, Mom, for 10 years. Every single day was a lie. No, Diana said firmly, standing up. Not every day. Yes, I lied about my name and my past, but everything else was real. My love for you is real. My love for Emma and Sophie is real. The life we built together is real. I'm still me, Thomas. I'm still the woman you married. I just had a before that I couldn't tell you about. Couldn't or wouldn't, both. I was terrified you'd reject me if you knew the truth, that you'd think I was damaged goods or a liar or not worth the trouble. So you let me marry someone who doesn't exist. I exist. I'm standing right here. Just because my birth certificate says Diana instead of Jennifer doesn't change who I am as a person. They stared at each other, both angry and hurt and scared. I felt like I was watching my family fall apart in real time. Thomas, I said quietly, you need to focus on what matters here. Diana was abused. She was terrorized by a man who wanted to own her. She did what she had to do to escape, and she's been living in fear for 27 years that he'd find her. That's not a lie. That's survival. I get that, I do. But she could have told me. At some point in 10 years of marriage, she could have trusted me enough to tell me the truth. You're right, Diana said. I should have told you years ago. That was wrong. But Thomas, I was afraid. I've been afraid my entire adult life. Fear makes you do things that don't make sense to people who aren't afraid. Thomas sat down heavily. He looked exhausted. This Robert guy, he's still threatening you. Yes, he wants money and he wants to control me again. And if he can't have either, he'll settle for destroying our family. Then we go to the police. We can't. My identity isn't legal. If they investigate, I could go to jail. And even if they believed me about Robert, there's no proof of his current threats. Just untraceable phone calls and unsigned letters. God, so what do? Just wait for him to show up. I don't know. I've been asking myself that question for 3 months. Thomas looked at me. Mom, what do you think? I sat down next to my son and took his hand. I think Diana made mistakes. She should have told you the truth from the beginning, but I also think she's been carrying an impossible burden by herself. And I think right now she needs you. You can be angry later. You can work through the betrayal and the hurt feelings later. But right now there's a dangerous man threatening your wife and your children, and we need to focus on that. Thomas was quiet for a long time. Then he turned to Diana. I'm hurt. I'm confused. I feel like I don't know what's real anymore. But you're right, Mom. We deal with the immediate threat first. Everything else we can sort out later. He stood and went to Diana. She looked up at him with so much hope and fear in her eyes. I love you, Thomas said. I don't know exactly what that means right now, given everything you've told me, but I do love you, and I'm not going to let some psychopath from your past hurt you or our girls. We'll figure this out, together. Diana burst into tears, and Thomas pulled her into his arms. She sobbed against his chest while he held her, and I had to look away because the intimacy of the moment felt private. We need a plan, I said after giving them a moment. Robert thinks Diana's alone and vulnerable. He doesn't know she's told anyone. That gives us an advantage. What kind of advantage? Thomas asked. I'm not sure yet, but there has to be a way to get proof of his threats, something concrete the police can act on. He's too smart for that, Diana said, pulling away from Thomas. He's never written anything down that could be traced to him. The phone calls are from blocked numbers. Even the letter had no fingerprints, I'm sure of it. Robert's been doing this for 27 years. He knows how to avoid evidence. Everyone makes mistakes eventually, I said. We just need to be ready when he makes his. Thomas's phone buzzed. He pulled it out and looked at the screen. His face went white. What is it? Diana asked. Thomas turned the phone so we could see. A text message from an unknown number. It contained a photo of Emma and Sophie at the park that very afternoon playing on the swings. Below the photo, one line of text, "Beautiful family you've got, Jenny. Be a shame if anything happened to them." Diana made a sound like a wounded animal. Thomas grabbed her arm to keep her from collapsing. Robert wasn't just threatening anymore. He was here. He'd been watching. He'd photographed their children. That's it, Thomas said, his voice shaking with rage. I'm calling the police right now. Wait, I said. Think about this. What are you going to tell them, that someone took a photo of your kids at a public park that's not illegal? The text is threatening. It's vague. A lawyer could argue it's not a specific threat. And if the police start investigating, they'll dig into Diana's background. Her false identity will come out. I don't care about that anymore. I care about keeping my children safe. So do I. But we need to be smart about this. We need real evidence, something undeniable. Diana was staring at Thomas's phone like it was a snake. He's escalating. The photo of the girls that's new. Before he only threatened me. Now he's going after them. We need to keep the girls safe, Thomas said. Maybe they should stay with you, Mom, just until we figure this out. No, Diana said sharply. We don't split up. That's what Robert wants. He wants to divide us, isolate me. We stay together. All of us. Then what do we do? I looked at both of them, at their frightened faces, and I made a decision. We set a trap, I said. Robert's been playing cat and mouse with Diana for 27 years. It's time we turn the tables. It's time we hunt him instead. A trap. Thomas looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Mom, this isn't some detective novel. This is real. Those are my daughters he photographed. Exactly. Which is why we can't just sit around waiting for him to make the next move. Diana, when was the last time Robert contacted you? Yesterday morning. He called while I was grocery shopping. Said he wanted another $10,000 by Friday, or he'd introduce himself to Thomas at the construction site. And you didn't tell me, Thomas's voice cracked. I was going to tell you everything last night, but then Margaret called and I knew she'd found the suitcase, and everything fell apart faster than I'd planned. Diana pressed her palms against her eyes. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for all of this. Stop apologizing and start thinking. I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Robert wants money. He wants control. He wants Diana scared and isolated. So we give him what he wants. Or at least we make him think we're giving him what he wants. Thomas shook his head. I don't understand. We arrange a meeting. Diana tells Robert she has the money. They set up a time and place. But instead of Diana showing up alone, we're there, with cameras, with witnesses, with everything we need to prove he's been threatening her. He'll never agree to meet in a public place, Diana said. Robert's too smart for that. He'll pick somewhere isolated where he has all the control. Then we make sure that wherever he picks, we get there first. We set up surveillance. We record everything. And when he shows up and threatens Diana on camera, we've got him. Thomas was pacing again, running his hands through his hair. This is crazy. What if something goes wrong? What if he hurts Diana? He won't hurt her if he thinks she's giving him money. And she won't actually be alone. We'll be close by, close enough to intervene if things get dangerous. And what about the police? We just do this vigilante justice thing and hope it works out. We involve the police as soon as we have solid evidence. But we need that evidence first. Right now, we have nothing but untraceable phone calls and a vague text message. We need Robert on camera making explicit threats demanding money. Then the police will have to act. Diana was staring at the photo of her daughters on Thomas's phone. Her hands trembled. When she looked up, her expression had changed. The fear was still there, but something else had joined it. determination, rage. "Let's do it," she said. "I'm done running. I'm done being afraid. If we're going to end this, we end it now." "Diana, are you sure?" Thomas reached for her hand. "I've never been more sure of anything. Robert took 3 years of my life. He's taken 27 more years of peace. He's made me lie to you, hide from you, live in constant terror. And now he's threatening our babies. I'm not giving him one more second of power over me." The transformation in Diana was stunning. Just an hour ago, she'd been sobbing and broken. Now she stood tall, her jaw set, her eyes fierce. This was a woman who'd survived hell, a woman who'd built a new life from nothing, a woman who was done being a victim. "Okay," Thomas said. "Okay, we do this, but we do it smart. We plan every detail. We don't take any chances." We spent the next 3 hours at their kitchen table planning. Diana would call Robert in the morning and tell him she had $15,000. She'd say it was all she could scrape together without Thomas noticing that it was the last payment, that after this he had to leave them alone. "He won't believe it's the last payment," Diana said. "But he'll believe I think it is. He'll take the money and then string me along for more later. That's how he operates, small bites. Keep the victim hopeful that if they just comply one more time, it'll be over." "Where will he want to meet?" I asked. "Somewhere isolated, somewhere he can watch the approach to make sure I'm alone. Maybe the old quarry off Route 47, or that abandoned warehouse by the railroad tracks. Robert likes places where he can control all the exits." Thomas pulled up a map on his phone. "The quarry's too open. If we try to hide there, he'll spot us. But the warehouse might work. There's an office building across the street. If we can get inside, we could watch from the upper floors." "He'll make Diana go inside the warehouse, though," I said. "We won't be able to see what happens in there." "Then we put a wire on her, something small, something he won't find even if he checks her." Diana paled. "What if he does find it? What if he searches me and discovers I'm recording him?" "Then you tell him Thomas made you do it. That your husband's suspicious and insisted on knowing where you were going. You say you were trying to protect Robert, that you planned to destroy the recording after. Make him think you're still on his side, still scared of him." "Will that work?" Thomas asked. "Maybe. Abusers want to believe their victims are still under their control. If Diana plays it right, if she seems frightened enough and apologetic enough, Robert might believe her." We talked through every scenario we could imagine. What if Robert brought someone with him? What if he demanded the money first and then made threats after when the recording had stopped? What if he didn't make any explicit threats at all, just took the money and left? "He'll make threats," Diana said with certainty. "He won't be able to help himself. Robert needs me to know he's in control. He needs to remind me that he owns me. That's more important to him than the money. The threats are the point." At midnight, Thomas insisted we all try to get some sleep. The girls would be up early, and he didn't want them to see their parents looking exhausted and terrified. We needed to act normal. Everything needed to seem normal until this was over. "You should stay here tonight, Mom," Thomas said. "I don't want you driving home this late. Take the guest room." I agreed. I didn't want to be alone with my thoughts anyway. Didn't want to lie in Harold's bed wondering if we were making a terrible mistake that would get someone hurt. But I couldn't sleep. I lay in the guest room staring at the ceiling, thinking about Diana and Thomas and my granddaughters, thinking about Harold and what he would say if he were here. He'd probably tell me I was crazy for encouraging this plan. Harold believed in letting authorities handle dangerous situations, but Harold had never dealt with someone like Robert, never watched someone he loved live in constant fear. Around 2 in the morning, I heard footsteps in the hallway. I opened my door and saw Diana standing there in pajamas, her face wet with tears. "Can't sleep either," I whispered. She shook her head. "Every time I close my eyes, I see Robert's face. I haven't seen him in person in 27 years, but I remember every detail. The way he smiled before he hurt me, the way his eyes went cold when he was angry, the way he could switch from charming to terrifying in seconds. Come sit with me." We went downstairs to the kitchen. I made chamomile tea, that useless tea that Harold always mocked, and we sat across from each other in the dim light from the stove. "You don't have to do this," I said. "We could still go to the police. Take our chances with your identity issues. At least you'd be safe. Would I? The police would investigate, and Robert would disappear. He's good at disappearing when he needs to. And then what? We'd live our whole lives waiting for him to come back. At least this way, if it works, it's over. Really over. And if it doesn't work, Diana's hands wrapped around her mug. Then at least I tried. At least I fought back. I've spent 27 years running and hiding. I'm tired, Margaret. I'm so tired of being afraid. You're incredibly brave. You know that, right? What you survived, what you built after most people couldn't have done that. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. You could have given up. Let Robert break you. But you didn't. You chose to survive. You chose to build a new life. You chose love and family and hope even when you were terrified. That's not weakness. That's the strongest thing a person can do. Diana started crying again, soft tears that rolled down her cheeks. I was so scared you'd hate me when you found out. You and Thomas both. I thought you'd see me as a liar and a fraud and want nothing to do with me. You're not a fraud. You're a survivor. There's a difference. Thomas is so hurt. I can see it in his eyes. He keeps looking at me like he doesn't know who I am anymore. Give him time. He's processing a lot. But that man loves you, Diana. I watched him grow up. I know him better than anyone. And I know he's not going to walk away from you. He's hurt and confused, yes. But he's also determined to protect you. That's love. What if we do this and something terrible happens? What if Robert hurts Thomas? Or you? What if the girls lose their father because of my past? That's not going to happen. We'll be careful. We'll be smart. And the second things look dangerous, we call the police. We're not heroes. We're just trying to get evidence. Diana nodded, but she didn't look convinced. We sat in silence for a while, sipping our tea, both of us knowing that in a few hours everything would change. Either we'd succeed in trapping Robert, or we'd fail spectacularly. There was no middle ground. When the sun started to rise, Thomas came downstairs. He looked like he hadn't slept either. Dark circles under his eyes, his face drawn and tired. "Morning," he said. His voice was hoarse. "Morning, baby." I stood and poured him coffee. "You okay?" "No, but I will be. After today, one way or another, this ends." Diana looked at him. "I'm sorry. For everything. For lying, for bringing danger to our family, for all of it." Thomas came over and pulled her up from her chair. He wrapped his arms around her and held her tight. "We'll talk about the lying later. We'll probably fight about it. You'll probably cry and I'll probably say things I don't mean because I'm hurt. But right now, in this moment, all I care about is keeping you and the girls safe. Everything else can wait." They stood there holding each other, and I turned away to give them privacy. Through the kitchen window, I could see the sun rising over the houses. A beautiful morning, birds singing, the world going on like normal, even though for us nothing was normal. Emma came downstairs at 7, followed by Sophie. They were still in their pajamas, hair messy from sleep. Innocent, completely unaware that their mother had a secret past and their family was in danger. "Grandma, are you making pancakes?" Emma asked, seeing me at the stove. "I am, with chocolate chips. How many can you eat? 1,000,000? I want strawberries on mine," Sophie said, "and whipped cream." Thomas and Diana plastered on smiles. We all pretended this was a normal morning, normal breakfast, normal family. The girls chattered about school and friends and the upcoming summer break. Diana helped them get dressed after breakfast. Thomas packed their lunches. I cleaned the kitchen. At 8:30, Thomas's mother-in-law arrived. Janet. I'd called her at dawn and asked if she could watch the girls today. I'd told her we had a family emergency and needed someone we could trust. She'd asked no questions, just said she'd be there. "Thank you for this," Diana said, hugging her. "I owe you." "You don't owe me anything, sweetie. You just take care of whatever you need to take care of. The girls and I will have a great day. We're going to the Children's Museum and then for ice cream." Emma and Sophie were thrilled. They adored Janet. They grabbed their backpacks and ran to her car, already arguing about which exhibit to visit first. After they left, the house felt too quiet. The three of us stood in the living room looking at each other. "You should make the call now," I said to Diana, "before you lose your nerve." Diana pulled out her phone with shaking hands. She'd written Robert's number on a piece of paper the night before. A blocked number untraceable, but she'd carefully noted each digit from her call history. What if he doesn't answer? Then you leave a message. Either way, you're taking control. You're initiating contact. That changes the power dynamic. Diana dialed. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. I thought it was going to voicemail. Then someone picked up. "Well, well, look who's calling me." Robert's voice came through the speaker. Diana had put it on speakerphone so Thomas and I could hear. His voice was smooth, almost friendly, not what I'd expected from a monster. "Miss me, Jenny." "Don't call me that." Diana's voice shook but held firm. "My name is Diana." Robert laughed. "Your name is whatever I say it is. You're mine, Jenny. You've always been mine. That fake name doesn't change that." "I have your money. 15,000. It's everything I can get without my husband noticing." 15? I asked for 10. You trying to buy extra time? "I'm trying to end this. Take the money and leave us alone. Please, Robert. I've given you everything you asked for. Just go away." Oh, Jenny, sweet, naive Jenny. You really think $15,000 is enough to make me disappear, after all these years of looking for you, after all the trouble you've caused me? Then what do you want? I want you to remember your place. I want you to understand that running away from me was a mistake. And I want my money, 20,000 now, not 15. I don't have 20,000. Then I guess I'll have to introduce myself to that husband of yours. What's his name? Thomas works in construction, right? I saw him at the Martinez job site yesterday. Looked like a nice guy. Be a shame if he had an accident with one of those nail guns. Diana's face went white. Thomas grabbed her hand. "Don't you dare threaten him. I'll get you the money. Just tell me when and where." That's my girl. Always so obedient when properly motivated. Tonight, 9 o'clock, the old Riverside warehouse on Commerce Street. You know it. I'll find it. Come alone, Jenny. I'll be watching. If I see anyone else, if I even think you've told someone the deal's off, and then I start making visits. First to Thomas, then to those pretty little girls of yours. What are their names? Emma and Sophie. Diana made a choking sound. You leave them alone. They're children. They have nothing to do with this. Everything you have is my business. Everything you love belongs to me. Remember that. 9 o'clock, alone, with 20,000 cash. He hung up. Diana dropped the phone like it had burned her. She was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Thomas wrapped his arms around her, but she pushed him away. He knows where you work. He knows the girls' names. He's been watching all of us, not just me. God, Thomas, what have I done? I've put you all in danger. Stop it. This isn't your fault. Robert's a psychopath. Nothing you did made him this way. But I brought him into your lives. If I'd just told you the truth from the beginning, if I'd been honest about who I was, maybe we could have prevented this. Or maybe Robert would have found you anyway, and you'd be facing him alone instead of with people who love you, I said. Diana, you heard him on that call. You heard the threats. That's evidence. That's something we can use. He didn't say anything specific enough. He implied threats but never said he'd actually hurt anyone. Any lawyer would argue it was just talk. She was right. Robert was careful even in his threats. He danced right up to the line without crossing it. Then we make sure tonight's recording is crystal clear, Thomas said. We get him on camera making explicit threats, demanding money, all of it. We spent the rest of the day preparing. Thomas called his foreman and said he had a family emergency, wouldn't be at work. Then he went to an electronics store and bought the smallest recording device he could find. A wireless microphone that looked like a button. It would transmit to his phone from up to 500 feet away. While Thomas was gone, Diana and I drove by the Riverside warehouse. It was exactly what I'd feared. A massive brick building from the early 1900s windows, broken or boarded up, surrounded by empty lots and abandoned buildings. The kind of place where someone could scream and nobody would hear. This is bad, Diana said. There's nowhere to hide nearby. Thomas won't be able to get close without Robert seeing him. What about inside? Could Thomas hide inside the warehouse before Robert gets there? Robert will check. He's paranoid. He'll sweep the whole building before he lets me in. We drove around the perimeter. On the north side, we found an old office building that was slightly less derelict than the others. Its windows were intact on the upper floors. "Could Thomas watch from there?" I asked. "Maybe, if he can get inside, if the angle's right. But he still won't be able to get to me quickly if something goes wrong. By the time he runs down from that building and across the street, Robert could hurt me and disappear." "Then we need backup. Someone else closer. Someone Robert won't recognize." "Who?" "We can't involve anyone else in this. It's too dangerous." I was quiet for a moment thinking. Then I said, "What if it's me?" "What?" "Robert doesn't know me. He's never seen me. What if I'm in the warehouse already hiding somewhere he won't think to check?" "Absolutely not. Margaret, you're 60 years old." 58. And I'm in good shape. I walk 3 miles every morning. I can hide in a dark warehouse for a few hours." "It's too dangerous. If Robert finds you, if he figures out what we're doing, he could hurt you. Or worse." "Then we make sure he doesn't find me. Diana Thomas can't be the one inside because Robert might recognize him from surveillance photos. But Robert has no idea who I am. I'm our best option." Diana shook her head. "Thomas will never agree to this. Thomas doesn't have to know until it's too late for him to stop it." We drove back to the house. Thomas was there with the recording equipment. He showed us how it worked, how to turn it on, how to hide it. The button mic would clip to Diana's bra strap, invisible under her shirt. As long as she was within 500 feet of his phone, everything would record. "I'll be in that office building," Thomas said. "3rd floor, northeast corner. I'll have a direct view of the warehouse entrance. The second I think you're in trouble, I'm calling the police and running over there." "And I'll be inside already," I said. Both of them stared at me. "Excuse me," Thomas said. "I'll be hiding in the warehouse before Robert gets there. That way, if Diana needs help immediately, she won't be alone." "Are you out of your mind, Mom? You are not hiding in an abandoned warehouse while a violent criminal is there." "Absolutely not. Who else can do it? You said yourself Robert might recognize you. He doesn't know me. I can be Diana's backup." "No. End of discussion. I won't let you put yourself in danger." "Thomas, I'm your mother, not your child. I don't need your permission. And Diana needs someone close by, someone who can intervene immediately if things go wrong." "Then we call the police. We tell them everything and let them handle it. And risk them investigating Diana's false identity, risk them deciding there's not enough evidence and doing nothing. We've been over this. We need solid proof first. Not at the cost of my mother's safety." Diana had been quiet during this exchange. Now she spoke up. "Thomas, she's right. I hate to say it, but Margaret's our best option. Robert will check the warehouse, but he'll look for obvious hiding places. A cleaning closet, the office, behind equipment. He won't do a thorough search because he's too arrogant. He thinks I'm too scared to try anything. If Margaret's already inside hidden really well, she can be there if I need her." "And what exactly would you do if Diana needs help?" Thomas demanded. "Robert's 6'2" and probably 200 pounds. You think you can fight him off?" "I won't fight him. I'll call the police and make noise. Create a distraction. Give Diana time to run. I don't have to be a hero. I just have to be present." Thomas looked at both of us, his expression anguished. "I hate this plan. I hate every part of it. But I don't have a better one." "Then it's settled. I'm going in at 7. That gives me 2 hours before Robert's supposed to arrive. I'll find a hiding spot and stay there. Diana arrives at 9. She meets with Robert, gets his threats on recording and leaves. Then we go straight to the police with the evidence." "And if something goes wrong?" Thomas asked. "Then we improvise, but nothing's going to go wrong. We're going to be careful and smart, and by this time tomorrow, Robert will be in police custody and your family will be safe." I said it with more confidence than I felt. The truth was, I was terrified, but I couldn't show it. If I showed fear, Thomas would never let me go through with this. And Diana needed me. My family needed me. We spent the afternoon going over the plan again and again, every detail, every contingency. Thomas made me promise that if Robert even looked in my direction, I would call the police immediately. No heroics, no trying to protect Diana by myself. At 6 o'clock, we picked up Chinese food, but nobody could eat. The carton sat on the table getting cold while we pushed food around our plates. "I should call the girls," Diana said. "Make sure they're okay." "Don't. Act normal. If you call when you usually don't, Robert might somehow know. He might have ways of monitoring your phone." Diana put her phone down reluctantly. "I hate this. I hate that he's made me paranoid about everything." "After tonight, you won't have to be paranoid anymore," I said. At 6:30, Thomas drove me to the warehouse. We parked 3 blocks away so Robert wouldn't see the car if he arrived early. "Mom, you don't have to do this. We can still find another way." "This is the way. Stop worrying. I'll be fine." I hugged him hard. He held me like he used to when he was small and afraid of thunderstorms. My baby boy, now a grown man, trying to protect his mother, who was trying to protect his family. "I love you," he said. "I love you too. Now go, get to your position, keep Diana safe." I got out of the car and walked toward the warehouse. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the empty lots. The building loomed ahead, dark and forbidding. Every instinct I had screamed at me to turn around, to run, to find another way. But I kept walking. The side door was unlocked just as Diana had predicted. Robert would come in the front, would expect Diana to come in the front. I slipped through the side door into darkness. The interior of the warehouse was even worse than I'd imagined. Cavernous space filled with abandoned equipment and debris. Water dripped somewhere. Something skittered in the shadows. Rats, probably. I suppressed a shudder. I turned on my phone flashlight and looked around. I needed a hiding spot where I could see the main area, but where Robert wouldn't think to look. Not the office, not behind the obvious large equipment, somewhere unexpected. In the far corner, I found a pile of old tarps and wooden pallets. If I arranged them carefully, I could create a hollow space underneath. It would be uncomfortable and claustrophobic, but it would hide me completely. I spent 20 minutes arranging my hiding spot. Then I crawled inside, pulling the tarp over me. I could see through a small gap between 2 pallets. I had a direct view of the center of the warehouse where presumably Diana and Robert would meet. Then I waited, in the dark, in the dust, trying not to think about rats or spiders or all the ways this could go horribly wrong. At 8:30, I heard a car outside. My heart jumped into my throat. Too early. It was supposed to be 9. Was it Robert arriving early to check the building, or someone else entirely? The front door opened. Footsteps. Heavy. Male. I held my breath, not moving, barely breathing. A flashlight beam swept across the warehouse. Through my small gap, I saw him. Robert. Tall, broad-shouldered, moving with the confidence of someone who owned the space. He looked different than I'd imagined. Older, probably in his 50s now. Gray at his temples, lines around his eyes. He wore jeans and a dark jacket. Just a normal-looking man. You'd never know he was a monster. He walked the perimeter of the warehouse, shining his light into corners, behind equipment, checking everything. When he got close to my hiding spot, I stopped breathing entirely. If he found me now, this was over. He'd know Diana had betrayed him. Robert's flashlight beam swept right over the tarps I was under. I could hear him breathing, could smell his cologne, something sharp and expensive. He stood there for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Then he moved on, continued his sweep of the building. After about 10 minutes, satisfied that he was alone, Robert positioned himself in the center of the space and waited. I checked my phone. 8:45, 15 minutes until Diana was supposed to arrive. I sent Thomas a text with one hand, keeping my phone brightness at the minimum. "Robert here. Hiding spot secure. Ready?" Thomas's reply came immediately. "Mom, please be careful. I'm in position. I can see the warehouse entrance. Diana's on her way." I put my phone on silent and tucked it into my pocket. Now we waited. Robert stood in the center of the warehouse, his back to me, checking his own phone. The dim light from his screen illuminated his face. He looked pleased, smug, like a hunter who knew his prey was walking into his trap. At exactly 9 o'clock, the warehouse door opened. Diana stepped inside. Even from a distance, even in the poor light, I could see she was terrified. But she held her head high. She'd dressed in jeans and a black jacket, practical clothes. Her hair was pulled back. She carried a backpack, presumably with the money. "Hello, Jenny," Robert said. His voice echoed in the empty space. "It's been a long time." Diana stopped about 20 feet from him. I have your money, 20,000 like you asked. Take it and leave. Come closer. Let me look at you. 27 years and you barely aged. Still beautiful. Still mine. I was never yours. And I'm not coming closer until you promise this is over. Promise me you'll take the money and disappear. Promise me you'll leave my family alone. Robert laughed. The sound was ugly. Your family. You mean my family. Those kids have my DNA, Jenny. You're my wife. That makes them mine, too. They're not yours. They're Thomas's, and my name is Diana. You can call yourself whatever you want, but you and I both know the truth. You're Jennifer Walsh. You belong to me. Running away doesn't change that. Marrying some construction worker doesn't change that. Having his babies doesn't change that. He stepped toward her. Diana stepped back, maintaining the distance between them. Don't come closer. Just take the money. I'll take the money. But first we're going to talk about the new arrangement. See, 20,000 is nice. But it's not enough. Not for 27 years of disrespect. Not for all the trouble you've caused me. What new arrangement? You're going to pay me 5,000 every month. Direct deposit to an account I'll set up. Think of it like alimony. You owe me for the years you stole from me. That's insane. I can't get 5,000 a month without Thomas noticing. Then you better get creative. Get a job. Steal from him. I don't care how you do it. But you'll pay me, or I'll destroy everything you've built here. Diana's voice shook. And if I refuse? If I just tell Thomas everything and go to the police? Robert's expression darkened. He closed the distance between them in 3 quick strides and grabbed Diana's arm. She cried out in pain. You want to know what happens if you refuse? I hurt your daughters, Jenny. I hurt them in ways that will break you forever. And then I hurt your husband. And then after you've lost everything you love, I take you back. And we start over. Just like it should have been all along. That was it, the explicit threat we needed. Robert had just threatened to harm Emma and Sophie on camera. Diana's hidden microphone was recording every word, but watching him grab Diana, seeing the violence in his movements, I knew I couldn't stay hidden anymore. I pushed the tarp aside and stood up. My legs were stiff from crouching, but adrenaline drove me forward. Let her go, right now. Robert spun around, still gripping Diana's arm. His eyes widened in shock. Who the hell are you? I'm her mother-in-law, and you just threatened my grandchildren. Diana, get behind me. Diana wrenched her arm free and stumbled backward. Robert's face transformed from shock to rage. The change was terrifying. 1 second he looked almost normal, the next he looked capable of murder. You brought someone, you stupid little bitch. I told you to come alone. He lunged toward Diana, but I stepped between them. Touch her, and I scream loud enough that every person within 3 blocks hears it. The police will be here in minutes. The police? You think I'm afraid of the police? Robert pulled out a knife from his jacket. The blade gleamed in the dim light. I've been avoiding cops for 30 years. I'm not stopping now. My phone was in my hand. I'd already dialed 911 before Robert finished his sentence. The operator's voice came through. 911, what's your emergency? Riverside Warehouse on Commerce Street. Man with a knife threatening 2 women. Please hurry. Robert moved toward me, but the warehouse door crashed open. Thomas burst in, breathing hard. Get away from them. Well, well. The husband shows up. This just keeps getting better. Robert's voice was mocking, but I saw calculation in his eyes. He was outnumbered now, and he knew it. Police are on the way, Thomas said. He held up his phone. And I've recorded everything, every threat you made, every word. You're done, Robert. You think some recording matters? You think anyone will believe your lying wife? She's been using a fake identity for 27 years. She's a fraud, a criminal. I'm the victim here. You're the victim. Diana's voice rose. You beat me for 3 years. You terrorized me. You made me so afraid I had to erase my entire existence just to escape you. And you call yourself the victim. I loved you. I gave you everything, and you ran away like an ungrateful child. Everything I did was because I loved you. That's not love. Love doesn't hurt. Love doesn't control. Love doesn't threaten to harm children. Robert's laugh was bitter. You want to talk about love? You married this fool and had his kids while I spent decades searching for you. I never gave up Jenny, never stopped looking. That's real love. That's commitment. That's obsession, I said, and it ends tonight. Sirens wailed in the distance. Robert heard them too. His expression changed again, becoming desperate. Cornered animals are the most dangerous, and Robert was definitely cornered. If I'm going down, I'm taking you with me. He raised the knife and moved toward Diana. Thomas threw himself forward, tackling Robert before the blade could connect. They crashed to the ground, rolling across the concrete floor. "Thomas!" Diana screamed. I grabbed her arm. "We need to get out. Now! Let the police handle this." But Diana pulled away from me. She ran toward the struggling men. "Thomas, be careful." Robert was bigger than Thomas, but Thomas was younger and fueled by rage. He pinned Robert's knife hand to the floor. "Drop it! Drop the knife!" "Never. She's mine. She'll always be mine." Thomas slammed Robert's hand against the concrete. Once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th impact, Robert's fingers opened and the knife skittered away. Diana kicked it further out of reach. The sirens were louder now, closer. Red and blue lights flashed through the broken windows. Car doors slammed. Footsteps running. "Police! Nobody move!" 4 officers rushed into the warehouse, guns drawn. One of them shouted again. "I said nobody move! Put your hands where we can see them!" Thomas immediately raised his hands and stepped back from Robert. Robert stayed on the ground, cradling his injured hand. Diana and I raised our hands too. "Officer, this man threatened us," I said. "He had a knife. He attacked us." "Save it! Everyone stay where you are!" The lead officer, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes, approached cautiously. She looked at the knife on the floor, at Robert, still on the ground, at the 3 of us standing together. Another officer bent down to Robert. "Sir, are you injured?" "My hand! That maniac broke my hand." Robert's voice had changed. Now he sounded like a victim. Hurt, frightened. If I hadn't seen what happened, I might have believed him. "I just came here to talk to my ex-girlfriend and these people attacked me." "That's a lie," Diana said. "He threatened to kill my children. He's been stalking me, blackmailing me. We have recordings of everything." The female officer studied Diana. "Ma'am, what's your name?" "Diana Morrison." "And you?" She looked at Robert. "Robert Walsh." "Walsh." The officer's eyes narrowed. "Any relation?" "She's my ex-wife. Used to be Jennifer Walsh before she ran off and changed her name illegally." I could see the officer processing this information. Diana's false identity. Robert claiming to be the victim. Without context, without knowing the full story, this situation could be interpreted very differently than what actually happened. "Officer, I'm Thomas Morrison, Diana's husband. I have recordings on my phone of Robert threatening my wife and children. He demanded money. He explicitly said he would hurt my daughters if Diana didn't pay him $5,000 a month. It's all recorded." "And I have recordings too," Diana said, reaching for the microphone hidden under her shirt. "Don't move." The officer's hand went to her weapon. "Keep your hands visible." "I'm just getting the recording device. It's clipped to my bra. I'm going to move slowly, okay?" The officer nodded. Diana carefully reached under her shirt and unclipped the button microphone. She held it up so everyone could see it. "Everything Robert said is recorded here, including his threats against my children." The female officer took the device. "We'll need to examine this, and your phone, sir." She gestured to Thomas. "Of course, whatever you need. But please, you need to arrest this man. He's dangerous. He's been terrorizing my wife for months." "We'll sort this out at the station. Right now, everyone needs to come with us." She looked at Robert. "Sir, can you stand?" Robert got to his feet, still cradling his hand. He looked at Diana with such hatred in his eyes that I instinctively moved closer to her. "This isn't over, Jenny. Even if they arrest me, I'll get out eventually. And I'll find you again. I always do." "That's enough," the officer said sharply. "Another word, and I'll add threatening behavior to whatever charges we're sorting out." 2 officers escorted Robert to a patrol car. He looked back at Diana the entire way, his eyes never leaving her face. Even being arrested, even caught, he still wanted her to know he wasn't giving up. The obsession ran that deep. Another officer approached us, young guy, early 20s. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come to the station to give a statement. You too, sir, and you." He looked at me. "We understand," Thomas said. "Can we call our lawyer?" "You're not under arrest. You're just giving statements. But yes, you can call a lawyer if you want one." We were separated into different patrol cars. I watched Diana and Thomas being driven away in different directions and felt a surge of anxiety. We'd planned for confronting Robert. We'd planned for getting evidence. We hadn't planned for what happened after, hadn't thought through how Diana's false identity would complicate things. At the police station, I was put in an interview room. Gray walls, metal table, uncomfortable chair, classic cop show setup. I sat there for 20 minutes before the female officer from the warehouse came in with a younger male officer. "I'm Detective Sarah Reeves. This is Officer Martinez. We need to ask you some questions about tonight." "Of course." "Let's start with your name and relationship to the people involved." "Margaret Morrison. Diana is my daughter-in-law. Thomas is my son." "And Robert Walsh." I'd never met him before tonight, but I know what he did to Diana 27 years ago. I know he beat her and controlled her and terrorized her until she had to fake her own death to escape him. Detective Reeves exchanged a glance with Officer Martinez. "Fake her own death? That's a serious allegation." "It's the truth. Diana's real name is Jennifer Walsh. She was 19 when she met Robert. He abused her for 3 years. When she finally escaped, she had to create a completely new identity because Robert wouldn't stop hunting her." "So you're admitting that your daughter-in-law has been living under a false identity." I realized my mistake too late. In trying to explain Diana's situation, I'd just confessed to them that she'd committed identity fraud. She had no choice. She was fleeing domestic violence. The police in Illinois wouldn't help her. A women's shelter assisted her in creating a new identity so she could disappear. Mrs. Morrison creating false identity documents is a federal crime. I understand that, but surely you can see she was a victim trying to survive, and tonight proves Robert is still dangerous. He threatened to kill my grandchildren. Thomas has the recording. We're examining the recording now. But even if it shows what you say, it shows that doesn't excuse identity fraud. Officer Martinez leaned forward. "Mrs. Morrison, why were you in that warehouse tonight?" I hesitated. How much should I admit I was there to protect Diana? We knew Robert would try something. We needed proof of his threats so we could go to the police. "So you set up a sting operation without police involvement. That's vigilante justice, ma'am. That's dangerous and potentially illegal." "What else were we supposed to do? Diana came to you months ago when Robert first contacted her. You said there wasn't enough evidence. You said unless he actually hurt someone, you couldn't help. Well, we got you evidence. We got you explicit threats on tape. Now you have to help." Detective Reeves sighed. "Mrs. Morrison, I understand you were trying to protect your family, but you put yourself and others at risk. Robert Walsh had a knife. Someone could have been killed." "But no one was. And now you have everything you need to arrest him and keep him locked up." "Maybe. We'll see what the recording shows. In the meantime, I need you to give me a complete statement. Start from the beginning. When did you first learn about Robert Walsh?" I told them everything. Finding the suitcase in the lake, hiring the diver, discovering Diana's real identity, her confession about her past, Robert's recent threats, the decision to set up tonight's meeting, every detail leaving nothing out. When I finished, Detective Reeves sat back. "That's quite a story." "It's the truth." "I'm sure it is. But here's the problem. You've admitted to multiple crimes tonight. You stole property from the lake that didn't belong to you. You invaded your daughter-in-law's privacy. You engaged in vigilante tactics. And you've confessed that Diana Morrison is living under fraudulent documents. So what happens now? You arrest Diana for trying to survive. You ignore Robert's threats. You punish the victim and let the abuser walk free. Nobody said anything about letting Robert walk free. If the recordings show what you say, they show he'll be charged with multiple crimes: extortion, stalking, threatening behavior. He'll face serious time. And Diana. Detective Reeves was quiet for a moment. That's complicated. Identity fraud is serious, but given the circumstances, given that she was fleeing domestic violence and the police failed to protect her, there might be options. Witness protection programs. Legal name changes done retroactively. It's not my area of expertise, but I know people who handle these cases. Relief flooded through me. So she won't be arrested. I didn't say that. I said there might be options, but Diana will need a good lawyer. And she'll need to cooperate fully with the investigation into Robert Walsh. Officer Martinez's radio crackled. He stepped out of his room to respond. When he came back, he whispered something to Detective Reeves. She nodded and looked at me. Mrs. Morrison, we've reviewed the recordings from tonight. They're clear. Very clear. Robert Walsh explicitly threatened violence against children. He admitted to stalking Diana. He demanded money. Combined with the physical assault tonight, we have more than enough to hold him. Thank God. There's more. We ran Robert's name through our database. He has a record. Assault charges in Illinois 28 years ago. The victim was Jennifer Walsh, Diana. The charges were dropped when the victim disappeared. Because he terrorized her into running. Probably. And there are 3 more assault charges from different women in different states over the past 20 years. None of them stuck. Victims recanted or disappeared or couldn't provide enough evidence. We're contacting those police departments now. If we can get those women to testify combined with tonight's evidence, Robert Walsh will be looking at decades in prison. Those poor women. He's been doing this for 20 years. At least. Probably longer. Robert Walsh is what we call a serial abuser. He finds vulnerable women, isolates them, controls them, and when they try to leave, he stalks them. Diana isn't his first victim, and she wouldn't have been his last. But she will be, his last victim, because of tonight, because we got proof. Detective Reeves smiled slightly. Yes, because of tonight. You took a huge risk, Mrs. Morrison. What you did was dangerous and technically illegal, but you probably saved lives, not just Diana's. Those other women, the ones who recanted, they might have the courage to come forward now. They might finally see justice. I felt tears building. Can I see Diana and Thomas? Soon. They're still giving their statements, but Mrs. Morrison, you should know that Thomas is taking this hard. He's angry, he's hurt. Not at you, at Diana. He's processing a lot right now. He loves her. He'll forgive her. I hope so. She's going to need support. The next few months will be difficult. Even if we can resolve the identity fraud issues, she'll have to testify against Robert. She'll have to relive her trauma in court. And her relationship with Thomas will need work. Rebuilding trust after 10 years of lies isn't easy. She was right. Even with Robert arrested, even with the immediate danger over Diana's struggles, weren't finished. She'd have to face her past in public, have to tell her story to prosecutors, judges, juries, have to explain to Emma and Sophie why their mother used to be someone else. But at least she'd be alive to face those challenges. At least Robert would be behind bars where he belonged. An hour later, I was finally allowed to leave. Thomas was in the lobby pacing. When he saw me, he rushed over. Mom, are you okay? Did they give you a hard time? I'm fine. Where's Diana? Still being questioned. They've been with her for 3 hours. Her lawyer's with her now trying to work out some kind of deal about the identity thing. And you, how are you holding up? Thomas ran his hands through his hair. He looked exhausted. I don't know. I'm relieved Robert's in custody. I'm grateful nobody got hurt. But Mom, I can't stop thinking about everything Diana lied about. 10 years. We've been married 10 years, and she lied to me every single day. She didn't lie about loving you. That was real. How do I know what was real? How do I know anything about her is true? Because you know her, Thomas. You know the woman she is now. The mother, the wife, the person who volunteers at school and makes pot roast and helps me in the garden. That's real. Her past, her name, those are just details. Details, Mom. Her entire identity was a fabrication. Her identity was survival. There's a difference. Jennifer Walsh died because she had to die for Diana to live, and Diana built something beautiful from those ashes. She built you. She built Emma and Sophie. She built a family. Don't let Robert destroy that too. Thomas sat down heavily on one of the lobby chairs. He looked like he might cry. I love her so much it hurts, but I don't know if I can trust her again. Then don't decide right now. Take time. Process everything. Talk to Diana when you're both ready. Go to counseling. Work through it. But don't give up on her. She needs you. What if I can't get past this? What if every time I look at her, all I see is the lies? What if you look at her and see a woman who survived hell, who built a life despite impossible odds, who loves you and your children so much that she's facing prison time right now rather than run and keep her freedom, because that's what she could have done, you know? When Robert first contacted her, she could have disappeared again, left you and the girls and started over somewhere new. But she didn't. She stayed. She fought. For you. Thomas was quiet for a long moment. The detective said Robert has other victims, that he's been doing this for 20 years. I know. Diana could have been just another statistic, another woman who disappeared and was never heard from again. But she made it out. She survived. She more than survived. She thrived. And that's because she's strong, Thomas, stronger than either of us realized. The door to the interview rooms opened. Diana walked out, followed by a woman in a business suit who I assumed was her lawyer. Diana looked pale and drawn, but when she saw Thomas, her whole face changed. Hope and fear mixed together. "Thomas," she said quietly, "can we talk?" Thomas stood. For a second I thought he might walk away, might tell her he needed time, needed space, but instead he crossed the lobby and pulled Diana into his arms. She collapsed against him, sobbing. "I'm sorry," she gasped between tears. "I'm so sorry for everything. I should have told you from the beginning. I should have trusted you." "Yes, you should have, and we're going to have to work through that. But right now, right this second, I'm just grateful you're safe." They stood there holding each other while the lawyer gave me a meaningful look. She gestured toward the exit. I nodded and quietly left the building, giving Diana and Thomas privacy. Outside, the night air was cool. The parking lot was half empty. Police cars came and went. A normal night at the police station. But for me, for my family, nothing would ever be normal again. My phone buzzed. A text from Janet. "The girls are asleep at my house. They're fine. How did it go?" I called her instead of texting back. "Robert's in custody. We got everything on tape. He'll go to prison." "Oh, thank God. And Diana, is she okay?" "Physically, yes. Emotionally, legally, that's more complicated. But we'll figure it out." "I knew you would. You're a tough old bird, Margaret Morrison." "Not that old, and definitely not feeling tough right now. I'm exhausted, Janet. This whole thing has aged me 10 years. Come to my house, have a drink, see your granddaughters sleeping peacefully because their grandmother is a badass who faced down a psychopath. I faced down a psychopath with a knife while hiding under a tarp in an abandoned warehouse. Harold would have called me crazy. Harold would have been proud. Now get over here." I drove to Janet's house. Emma and Sophie were indeed asleep, curled up together in Janet's guest bed. I stood in the doorway watching them for a long time. They had no idea how close they'd come to danger, how their mother had fought to protect them, how their grandmother had hidden in the dark to keep them safe. They'd know eventually. Diana would have to tell them something age-appropriate about her past, but for now, they could sleep peacefully. For now, they were just two little girls dreaming little girl dreams. Janet handed me a glass of wine. We sat on her back porch in the dark, not talking, just being together. Sometimes, friendship doesn't need words. My phone rang at 11:30. Thomas. "Mom, Diana's being released. They're not charging her with anything pending further investigation. Her lawyer worked out some kind of provisional immunity deal while they look into ways to legitimize her identity legally." That's wonderful news. "And Robert's being held without bail. The judge called him a flight risk and a danger to the community. The prosecutor thinks he'll take a plea deal to avoid trial. 20 years minimum." 20 years. Diana will be 52 when he gets out. If he gets out. The prosecutor said with his history and tonight's evidence, Robert might die in prison. And honestly, Mom, I hope he does. I hope he rots there. The venom in Thomas's voice surprised me. My gentle son, who'd once cried when we had to put down a sick bird, was hoping another human would die in prison, but I understood. Robert had threatened his children, had terrorized his wife, had shattered his trust. Some things can't be forgiven. "Come to Janet's," I said. "See your daughters, go home with your wife, start healing." We're on our way. 20 minutes later, Diana and Thomas arrived. They looked wrung out, but together. They were holding hands. Diana had been crying again, her eyes red and swollen, but she smiled when she saw me. "Margaret, I don't know how to thank you. You risked your life tonight. For me. After everything I've done all my lives, you still stood up for me. You're family. Family protects family. That's what Harold taught me. And that's what we do." We went inside. Diana tiptoed into the guest room to check on the girls. She stood there for a long time, just watching them sleep. Thomas stood behind her, his hand on her shoulder. When Diana turned around, she was crying again. "They're so perfect," she whispered. "So innocent. And I almost lost them because of my past, because I was too afraid to tell the truth." "But you didn't lose them," Thomas said. "They're right here. We're all right here. And tomorrow we start figuring out how to move forward." We left Janet's house around midnight. I drove home alone, emotionally and physically exhausted. The house felt empty without Harold. I wanted to tell him about tonight, wanted to hear him say I was crazy for hiding in that warehouse, but that he was proud of me anyway. Instead, I stood at the kitchen window looking out at Crystal Lake. The water was calm, reflecting the moon. That lake held so many secrets. Diana's old suitcase somewhere at the bottom. Tommy Chen's body never recovered. Probably more stories I'd never know. But tonight we'd pulled one secret from those depths and exposed it to light. Tonight we'd taken power away from a man who'd wielded it like a weapon for 30 years. Tonight we'd proven that survivors could fight back and win. I made chamomile tea, useless chamomile tea, and sat at the table where I'd sat just days ago, watching Diana throw that suitcase into the water. So much had changed since then. So much had been revealed. My phone buzzed. A text from Diana. "Thank you will never be enough, but thank you for believing in me, for protecting me, for being the mother I lost 27 years ago. I love you." I texted back, "I love you too. Get some rest. Tomorrow's a new day." But even as I sent it, I knew rest wouldn't come easily for any of us. The physical danger was over, but the emotional fallout was just beginning. Thomas and Diana had months, maybe years of rebuilding trust ahead of them. Diana would have to testify against Robert, relive her trauma publicly. Emma and Sophie would eventually need to know the truth about their mother's past. And me, I'd have to process the fact that I'd hidden in an abandoned warehouse and confronted a violent criminal. At 58 years old, I'd done something so reckless, Harold would have been furious. But I'd also done something brave, something necessary, something that saved my family. I looked at Harold's photo on the mantel. "I hope you're proud of me, old man. I hope wherever you are you're watching and you understand why I did what I did." The photo didn't answer, but in my heart I knew Harold would have done the same thing, would have hidden in that warehouse, would have faced down Robert, would have risked everything to protect the people we loved, because that's what family does. And Diana was family past lies and all. She was family, and she was worth fighting for. I finished my tea and went to bed. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and prosecutors and interviews. Tomorrow would bring difficult conversations and hard truths. Tomorrow would bring the beginning of healing or the beginning of falling apart. But tonight, Robert was in jail. Diana was safe. Emma and Sophie were sleeping peacefully, and that was enough. For tonight, that was more than enough. Morning came too quickly. I woke at dawn with every muscle in my body screaming. Hiding under tarps and confronting criminals apparently took a physical toll at 58. I swallowed 3 ibuprofen and made coffee strong enough to strip paint. My phone was full of messages. Thomas checking in, Janet asking about breakfast plans, Detective Reeves requesting I come to the station at 10 to sign my formal statement, and one from Diana sent at 4 in the morning. Can't sleep. Keep replaying everything. Thomas is being kind, but I can feel the distance between us. I don't know how to fix this. I called her instead of texting. She answered on the first ring. "Margaret, I'm sorry I shouldn't have texted so late. Are you okay?" "No. Yes. I don't know." Thomas barely looked at me this morning. He made coffee and left for work without saying more than 5 words. He's never done that before. We always have breakfast together. He's processing. Give him time. What if time isn't enough? What if I've destroyed us? Diana, stop. Thomas loves you. I saw it last night at the police station. The way he held you. That wasn't a man who's given up. That was a man who's hurt, but still fighting for his marriage. But what if the hurt is too deep? What if every time he looks at me, he just sees Jennifer Walsh, the liar? Then you remind him that Jennifer Walsh was a scared 19-year-old girl who made impossible choices to survive. And Diana Morrison is a strong woman who built a beautiful life. You're both people, Diana. You don't have to choose. She was quiet for a moment. The detective called. They want me to testify in front of a grand jury next week, and there are 3 other women who've come forward. Robert's other victims. They want to meet me, compare stories, build a stronger case. That's good. That means Robert won't see daylight for decades. It also means reliving everything, in detail, in public. Margaret, I don't know if I'm strong enough. You are. You've already proven that. You survived Robert once. You can survive telling your story. Will you come with me to the grand jury? I know that's asking a lot, but I need someone there who knows the truth, who believes me. Of course I'll come. And Diana, you should ask Thomas to come too. Let him see your strength. Let him witness you standing up to Robert's legacy. What if he says no? Then you go anyway. But I don't think he'll say no. He's your husband. Despite everything, he'll want to support you. After we hung up, I got ready for my own appointment at the police station. Detective Reeves met me in the lobby, looking more tired than she had last night. Mrs. Morrison, thank you for coming in. I need you to review your statement and sign it. She led me to a small office and handed me several typed pages. My story from last night transcribed into formal police language. It read like fiction. Woman discovers daughter-in-law's secret identity, hires diver to retrieve evidence from lake, hides in abandoned warehouse to catch criminal. This is accurate, I said, signing each page. What happens now? Now we build the case against Robert Walsh. With your statement, Diana's testimony, Thomas's recording, and the 3 other victims who've come forward, we have him on multiple counts. Extortion, stalking, assault, making terroristic threats. He's looking at minimum 30 years, possibly life. Life for threats and extortion. The other victims have more than threats. One woman has medical records showing injuries consistent with severe abuse. Another has restraining orders that Robert violated repeatedly. And there's evidence Robert may have been involved in a suspicious death in Missouri 10 years ago. A woman he dated who allegedly committed suicide. Her family never believed it was suicide. My stomach turned. You think Robert killed her? We're investigating, but yes, it's possible Robert Walsh has done more than stalk and threaten. He may have actually killed. Does Diana know? Not yet. We're verifying facts before we tell her. But Mrs. Morrison, if Robert is responsible for that woman's death, Diana's decision to run 27 years ago may have saved her life. Jennifer Walsh could have ended up dead instead of just disappeared. I thought about that suitcase at the bottom of the lake. How close Diana had come to needing a real grave instead of a symbolic one. How her choice to run to hide to become someone else had kept her alive while other women Robert fixated on hadn't been so lucky. When will you tell her? Soon. She deserves to know the full scope of what she escaped. And honestly, it might help her understand that what she did wasn't cowardice. It was survival instinct. The smartest decision she could have made. I left the police station feeling overwhelmed. This wasn't just about Diana anymore. This was about other women Robert had hurt, other families destroyed, other lives ended or permanently damaged. And somehow, my decision to retrieve that suitcase had started the chain of events that would finally bring him to justice. Thomas called as I was driving home. Mom, can you come over tonight? Diana wants to talk to both of us. She says there's more we need to know. More? What more could there possibly be? I don't know. But she sounded serious. Scared even. Can you come? Of course. What time? 7. After the girls go to bed. I spent the day trying to distract myself, cleaned the house, worked in the garden, called Janet and gave her an update. But my mind kept circling back to Diana's words. There's more we need to know. What could she possibly have left to tell? At 6:45, I drove to Thomas and Diana's house. Diana answered the door looking pale but composed. She'd clearly been crying but had pulled herself together. "Thank you for coming. Thomas is putting the girls to bed. He'll be down in a few minutes." We sat in the living room in uncomfortable silence. Diana twisted her wedding ring around and around her finger. When Thomas finally came downstairs, he looked as anxious as I felt. "Okay, we're here," he said, sitting in the chair farthest from Diana. The distance wasn't lost on either of us. "What did you want to tell us?" Diana took a deep breath. "Detective Reeves called today. They've been investigating Robert's history, and they found something. Something I didn't know about until today." "What?" Thomas's voice was flat. 10 years ago, a woman Robert was dating died. Her name was Melissa Chen. The police ruled it suicide, but her family never believed it. And now, with everything that's come out, they're reopening the investigation. "They think Robert killed her," I said. Diana nodded. Melissa's sister contacted the detective. She said Melissa had been trying to leave Robert, had packed her bags, bought a bus ticket, planned to disappear, just like I did. But she never made it onto that bus. They found her 2 days later in her apartment, hanging. But her sister says Melissa would never kill herself. She had a daughter, a 4-year-old daughter she loved more than anything. "Oh, God," Thomas whispered. "There's more." The sister kept all of Melissa's belongings. Letters, journals, everything. In those journals, Melissa wrote about a man named Robert, who was controlling her, threatening her, saying he'd kill her daughter if Melissa left. The police at the time never saw those journals because the sister didn't know they existed. Melissa had hidden them in a storage unit. "And now the police have them," I said. "Yes, and they show a pattern exactly like what Robert did to me. The love bombing at first, then the isolation, the control, the violence, the threats. Melissa wrote that she was planning to fake her death to escape him, that she'd found someone who would help her create a new identity. But before she could leave, she died." Thomas stood up and started pacing. "So Robert's not just a stalker and an abuser. He's potentially a murderer." The detective thinks so. They're doing forensic analysis of the original crime scene photos, looking for evidence it was staged to look like suicide. And if they find anything at all, Robert will be charged with murder. "Which means he'll never get out of prison," I said. "Which means I'll spend the rest of my life knowing that I could have prevented Melissa's death." Diana said, her voice breaking. "If I'd gone to the police 27 years ago, if I'd testified against Robert then, if I'd been braver, Melissa might still be alive." "Stop," Thomas said sharply. "You were 19 and terrified. You can't blame yourself for what Robert did to someone else." "But I can. Don't you see I ran and saved myself, but I left him free to hurt other women? 3 women have come forward saying he abused them. 3. And who knows how many others didn't come forward, how many women suffered because I was too afraid to speak up. You were a victim. You're still a victim. You don't owe anyone martyrdom, Diana. But maybe I owe them honesty. Maybe I owe it to Melissa and her daughter and everyone else Robert hurt to finally tell the whole truth. Not just about Robert, about me too." Thomas stopped pacing. "What does that mean?" Diana looked at both of us. "It means I want to go public. I want to tell my story, not just in court, everywhere. I want every woman who's being abused to know they can escape, that they can survive, that creating a new identity isn't cowardice, it's survival." "Diana, that's dangerous," I said. "Going public means Robert's family might come after you. His friends, people who don't believe he's guilty, might harass you." "I know, but I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of being afraid. For 27 years, I've lived in fear that someone would discover who I really was. And you know what? The secret coming out wasn't as bad as I thought. Yes, Thomas is hurt. Yes, our marriage is damaged. But we're still here. I'm still here. And maybe my story can help someone else escape before it's too late." Thomas sat down heavily. "If you do this, if you go public, it affects all of us. Emma and Sophie will know. Their friends will know. Everyone in town will know that their mother used to be someone else. I know. That's why I'm asking you both. I won't do this without your permission. This is our family, our decision." "What does your lawyer say?" I asked. "She says it could actually help my case. Public sympathy might pressure the prosecutors to grant me full immunity for the identity fraud. And if Melissa's case does become a murder investigation, having public support could be important. But she also warned me about the downsides, the media attention, the trolls online who'll say I'm lying, the people who'll try to find Robert's good qualities and defend him. They always do, Thomas said bitterly. Every time a man gets accused, people come out of the woodwork to say he was nice to them, he couldn't have done it, the woman must be lying. So what do we do? Diana looked at him. This is your decision as much as mine. Do we keep this private, or do we fight publicly? Thomas was quiet for a long time. Finally he said, "Tell me about Melissa's daughter, the 4-year-old who lost her mother." "Her name is Katie. She's 14 now, being raised by Melissa's sister. According to the detective, Katie has always known her mother didn't kill herself, that someone hurt her, but she's never had proof, never had justice. And if Robert goes down for her mother's murder, Katie gets that justice. Maybe, if they can prove it. And your story could help prove it, could show a pattern, could show that Robert has done this before and will do it again if not stopped." "That's what the detective thinks." Thomas looked at me. "Mom, what do you think?" I thought about Harold, about what he would say if he were here. Harold believed in standing up for what's right, even when it was hard. Believed in protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. Believed that silence in the face of injustice was its own kind of evil. "I think Diana should tell her story," I said. "I think the world needs to hear it. And I think Emma and Sophie will be proud of their mother for being brave enough to speak up. They're 8 and 6. They won't understand. Not now, but someday they will. Someday they'll be old enough to understand that their mother survived something terrible and used that survival to help others. That's a legacy worth leaving." Diana's eyes filled with tears. "You really think so?" "I know so." Thomas stood and walked to Diana. He knelt in front of her chair and took her hands. "If you do this, if you go public, I'm with you. We're with you. All the way. But Diana, you and I need to talk, really talk, about the lies, about the trust, about how we move forward from here." "I know. I want to fix this, Thomas. I want to fix us." "Then let's fix it. Starting tomorrow. Marriage counseling, individual therapy for you to deal with the trauma, whatever it takes. But tonight, right now, I need you to know something." "What?" "I love you. I'm angry and hurt and confused, but I love you. And I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me, Diana Morrison, or Jennifer Walsh, or whoever you want to be." Diana sobbed and threw her arms around Thomas's neck. He held her while she cried, and I quietly left the room to give them privacy. In the kitchen, I made tea and tried not to cry myself. My son was a better man than I'd even realized. Harold would have been so proud. 20 minutes later, they came into the kitchen, hand in hand. Diana's face was blotchy, but she was smiling. "We're going to be okay," she said. "It'll take time, but we're going to be okay." "Of course you are. You love each other. That's all that matters." "There's something else," Thomas said. "Diana and I talked, and we want you to be part of telling her story. We want you to talk about what you did, how you found the suitcase, how you put the pieces together, how you risked your life in that warehouse. People need to hear that protecting abuse victims isn't just about the victim. It's about family and community standing up. Me, I'm not going on television. Why not you're part of this story too? And honestly, Mom, you're the hero here. Diana survived, but you're the one who made sure Robert finally faced justice." "I'm not a hero. I'm just a mother who loves her family." "That's exactly why you should tell your story. Show other mothers, other families that they can fight back too, that they should fight back." I thought about it. Going public meant exposing myself to scrutiny, meant people would judge my decisions, would say I should have gone to the police sooner, would criticize everything I did. But it also meant maybe one more family would pay attention to warning signs. One more mother would believe her daughter-in-law who seemed too nervous, too controlled. One more person would speak up instead of looking away. "Okay," I said. "I'll do it. For Melissa, for those other women, for Diana." The next week was chaos. Diana met with prosecutors, gave her statement to the grand jury, met with Melissa's sister Sarah, who broke down crying and thanked Diana for finally giving them hope for justice. The three other victims met together for the first time, sharing their stories, supporting each other. And through it all, media requests poured in. Detective Reeves called on Friday with news. We have forensic evidence that Melissa's death was staged, ligature marks inconsistent with hanging, signs of a struggle that were missed in the original investigation. Combined with her journals and the pattern with other victims, we're charging Robert Walsh with first-degree murder. Diana sat down hard when she heard. So it's real. He really killed her. Yes. And Diana, without your case, without you coming forward, we might never have reopened this. Melissa's family owes you everything. Sarah called an hour later. Diana, I don't know how to thank you. We've waited 14 years for this. Katie's waited 14 years. Finally we'll have justice for Melissa. I'm so sorry, Diana whispered. I'm so sorry I didn't stop him sooner. You were a victim too. Please don't apologize. Just help us make sure he never hurts anyone else again. The interview was scheduled for the following Wednesday. A national morning show wanted Diana's story. They'd send a crew to film at our house. Diana, Thomas, and I would all appear together. The night before the interview, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what I'd say, how to explain that sometimes love means doing dangerous things, that protecting family isn't always safe or legal or even smart, that sometimes you just have to trust your instincts and hope for the best. At midnight, Diana texted, "You awake? Can't sleep. You. Too nervous. Tomorrow everything changes." It already changed. Tomorrow we just tell everyone else about it. Margaret, what if I mess this up? What if I say the wrong thing and people don't believe me? Then they don't believe you, but someone will. One woman watching who's being abused right now will see your story and realize she can escape. That's all that matters. When did you become so wise? When I had to be. When my family needed me to be. That's how it works. The morning of the interview arrived cold and gray. The TV crew showed up at 8 to set up lights and cameras. They wanted to film in the living room with family photos visible in the background. Real life, they said. Authentic. Diana wore a simple blue dress. Thomas wore slacks and a button-down shirt. I wore the cardigan Harold bought me for our last anniversary, the one I only wore on special occasions. We sat on the couch together, Diana in the middle, while the interviewer adjusted her microphone. We're going to start with Diana telling her story, the interviewer said. Her name was Rachel, and she had kind eyes. Then Thomas will talk about finding out the truth, and Margaret, you'll talk about what you did to protect your family. Ready? We nodded. The cameras started rolling. Rachel asked Diana the first question. Can you tell us who you were before you were Diana Morrison? Diana took a deep breath. My name was Jennifer Walsh. I was 19 years old when I met a man named Robert Walsh, and for the next 3 years he made my life a living hell. She told her story, the abuse, the control, the escape, the 27 years of looking over her shoulder, Robert finding her again, the threats against Emma and Sophie. Thomas held her hand while she spoke. When she got to the part about throwing the suitcase in the lake, about trying to erase Jennifer Walsh one final time, she started crying. I thought if I could just destroy all the evidence, he'd have no power over me. I thought I could bury my past and it would stay buried. But secrets don't stay buried. They surface eventually, and mine surfaced because my mother-in-law loves me enough to risk everything. Rachel turned to me. Margaret, you hired a diver to retrieve that suitcase. You invaded Diana's privacy. Some people might say what you did was wrong. What do you say to them? I say, love isn't always neat and respectful. Sometimes love is messy. Sometimes it's going through someone's belongings to understand what's threatening them. Sometimes it's hiding in a warehouse with a knife-wielding criminal 20 feet away. I'd do it all again without hesitation because that's what family does. And Thomas, you found out your wife of 10 years had been lying about her identity. How did that make you feel? Thomas was quiet for a moment. Betrayed, hurt, confused. But also, once I understood why she lied, I felt guilty. Guilty that Diana didn't feel safe enough to tell me the truth from the beginning. That made me look at our marriage differently, made me realize I needed to be someone she could trust with anything, even her darkest secrets. Are you still together? Yes, we're working through it. Marriage counseling, individual therapy, long conversations about trust and honesty. It's not easy, but Diana's worth fighting for. Our family's worth fighting for. Rachel leaned forward. Diana Robert Walsh has been charged with murder in the death of Melissa Chen. How does it feel knowing you might have prevented her death if you'd come forward sooner? Diana flinched. Thomas squeezed her hand. I feel guilty every single day, but I also know that guilt isn't productive. What's productive is making sure Melissa gets justice. What's productive is telling my story so other women know they can escape. That's how I honor Melissa's memory. What would you say to women watching this who are in abusive relationships right now? Diana looked directly at the camera. I'd say you're not alone. I'd say escape is possible even when it feels impossible. I'd say there are people who will help you disappear if that's what it takes to save your life. And I'd say to everyone else watching, if you suspect someone is being abused, speak up. Don't wait. Don't assume someone else will handle it. You could save a life. And Margaret, what would you say to families of abuse victims? I'd say believe them, even if their story sounds crazy, even if the abuser seems like a nice person. Believe the victim, and then do whatever it takes to help them, even if it's dangerous or illegal or scary. Because one day you might look back and realize your action or inaction meant the difference between life and death. The interview lasted 2 hours. When it was over, Rachel hugged each of us. This will air next Wednesday. Be prepared for intense public reaction. Some of it will be positive, some of it will be negative. Are you ready for that? No, Diana said honestly, but I'm doing it anyway. The week waiting for the interview to air was torture. Diana couldn't sleep. Thomas was jumpy. Emma and Sophie knew something was happening but didn't understand what. We decided to tell them a simplified version after the interview aired. Age-appropriate truth. Mommy had to leave her old family when she was young because someone was hurting her. Now that person is going to jail, so he can't hurt anyone else. Wednesday morning arrived. The interview aired at 7. By 7:30, my phone was exploding. Messages from people I hadn't talked to in years. Friend requests on Facebook from strangers. Emails from reporters wanting follow-up interviews. The story had gone viral. Most responses were supportive. Women sharing their own abuse stories. Families thanking us for speaking up. Advocacy groups asking Diana to speak at their events. But there were negative responses too. People saying Diana was a liar, that Robert was being railroaded, that she'd seduced him and then ran when she got bored. The comments were vicious. Don't read them, Thomas told Diana when he found her crying over her phone. Those people don't matter. They don't know you. They don't know the truth. But what if Emma and Sophie see these comments someday? What if their friends' parents think I'm a liar? What if I've made everything worse? You haven't. Look at these messages. Thomas showed her his own phone. 3 women have contacted me saying they left their abusers after watching your interview. 3 women in one day. That's 3 families saved because you were brave enough to speak up. By the end of the week, dozens of women had reached out. Some wanted to share their stories. Some wanted advice on how to escape. Some just wanted to say thank you for making them feel less alone. Diana spent hours responding to each one, offering support and resources. A month later, Robert Walsh went to trial for Melissa Chen's murder. Diana testified. So did the other victims. So did forensic experts who explained how the crime scene had been staged. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts, first-degree murder, multiple counts of stalking and extortion, life in prison without possibility of parole. Sarah called Diana sobbing. We did it. We finally did it. Melissa can rest now. Diana broke down. Thomas held her. I held both of them. We stood in their kitchen crying together, releasing years of tension and fear and pain. That night, Emma asked why everyone was crying. Diana sat down with both girls and told them the truth, the age-appropriate version we'd practiced. When Mommy was very young, younger than you can imagine, someone hurt her, someone very bad. So Mommy had to change her name and move far away to be safe, and that person found Mommy again and tried to hurt our family. But Grandma and Daddy and Mommy worked together to stop him, and now he's in jail forever and we're safe. Is that why we had to stay with Aunt Janet? Sophie asked. Yes, baby, we were keeping you safe. And you're really safe now. Emma's voice was small. Really, truly safe. Forever. Emma thought about it. I think you're very brave, Mommy. So do I, Sophie added. Diana pulled them both into her lap and held them tight. Over their heads, she looked at Thomas and me. Her expression said everything words couldn't. Thank you. I love you. We survived. 6 months after Robert's conviction, Diana received a letter from Katie Chen, Melissa's daughter. She was 15 now, old enough to understand what had happened to her mother, old enough to write her own words. Dear Diana, my aunt told me about you and what you went through. I want you to know I don't blame you for anything. You were a victim too. But because of you, I finally have answers about my mom. I finally have justice. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for speaking up. You gave me my mother's memory back. Love, Katie. Diana framed that letter and hung it in her office. On hard days when the trauma felt overwhelming, when therapy sessions dredged up painful memories, she'd read Katie's words and remember why speaking up had mattered. Thomas and Diana's marriage slowly healed. The counseling helped. So did time. So did honest conversations about fear and trust and the difference between secrecy and privacy. They'd never be exactly what they were before. But they became something stronger, something built on truth instead of convenient omissions. Emma and Sophie adjusted. Their friends' parents were supportive. The school counselor checked in regularly. They wrote papers for class about having a brave mom. They drew pictures of our family that included Grandma as a superhero, which made me laugh until I cried. As for me, I started volunteering at the women's shelter where Diana had gotten help 27 years ago. I taught classes on recognizing abuse, on trusting your instincts when something feels wrong, on being willing to help even when it's uncomfortable or scary. Harold would have approved. A year after Robert's conviction, we all went to Crystal Lake together, the place where this had all started. Diana brought flowers and threw them on the water. What are you doing? Emma asked. Saying goodbye to Jennifer. She served her purpose. She kept me alive. But I don't need her anymore. I'm Diana now, fully Diana, and I'm finally free. We stood by the water's edge watching the flowers drift. The lake was calm, beautiful, holding no more secrets. Diana took Thomas's hand. He pulled her close. Emma and Sophie ran ahead, chasing each other, laughing. And I thought about that night I'd seen Diana throw the suitcase into these dark waters, how terrified I'd been, how I'd doubted everything I knew, how I'd made choices that could have gotten me killed. I'd do it all again, every single terrifying moment, because family isn't about perfection. It's about showing up when things get hard. It's about believing people when they tell you they're in danger. It's about risking everything to protect the people you love. Robert Walsh stole 3 years from Jennifer Walsh and 27 more years of peace from Diana Morrison. But he didn't win. Diana survived. She thrived. She built a beautiful family and a meaningful life. She helped bring justice for Melissa Chen and hope for countless other abuse victims. That suitcase I pulled from the lake held more than old clothes and photographs. It held Diana's pain, her fear, her shame, and by bringing it to the surface, we gave her permission to finally let it all go, to stop running, to stop hiding, to simply be. Sometimes the things we bury come back to haunt us, but sometimes if we're brave enough to face them, they set us free instead. Diana Morrison, born Jennifer Walsh, taught me that, and watching my grandchildren grow up safe and loved, watching my son rebuild trust with his wife, watching my daughter-in-law help other women escape their own nightmares, I know without a doubt that every risk was worth it. Because in the end, love isn't passive. Love is active. Love is fighting. Love is hiding under tarps in abandoned warehouses at 58 years old because someone you care about needs you. Love is messy and complicated, and sometimes requires breaking rules and taking chances. That's what I learned the night I saw my daughter-in-law toss a suitcase into Crystal Lake. And that's a lesson I'll carry for the rest of my life.